It is the 2026 primary election in Ohio. Welcome to Action News Now and 13 Plus. I am Josh Krupp. Tonight we're tracking all the results as they come in. Polls have just closed in Ohio. We expect to get numbers here fairly shortly, and when we do, we will walk through the results together, explain to you what they mean, of course, where the outstanding votes are, what other races we're watching tonight. It's going to be an interesting one. I will set the stage for you by letting you know where else you can watch us. If you got this push alert and clicked on it, welcome to you. Thanks for watching on the 13 Action News mobile app. You can also find us tonight on all of our streaming apps on your smart TV. If you want to throw us on Fire TV, Roku, have us on in the background, you can search 13 Plus or 13 Action News in your TV's app store to find that. We are also live on the 13 Action News YouTube page tonight and Facebook page. You can drop your comments and questions and whatnot in both of those chats. Already having some questions coming in on the chat. We will, of course, look to talk with all of you tonight as we digest all the results. Couple of big races that we're watching tonight as we wait for the results to come through. You see them scrolling behind me. We're not just talking about the big ticket items. We're also talking about what could be expensive items for either local communities, for your property tax bill. We're watching local levies. We're watching state house races, some competitive primaries on the Democratic and Republican side for statewide elected office. We are, of course, following a couple that I think many of you watching are familiar with tonight that are on the ballot, a couple of races. Of course, Ohio will elect a brand new governor this year. Who will Republicans pick to face Dr. Amy Acton? We will find out tonight. We expect Vivek Ramaswamy to get the gold check mark here any moment now and officially move on to November's general election after the primary is over. He kind of looks at this as the end of a chapter in this campaign, Vivek Ramaswamy does. Now he gets to focus 100% on Dr. Amy Acton. In his mind, in Vivek's mind, the general election began about a year ago, and those are largely his words. Back in May of last year, the Republican Party endorsed Vivek Ramaswamy to be their candidate in this race for governor, basically shutting down any possibility that we saw a competitive primary. State party resources all going by way of Vivek Ramaswamy nearly a year before the primary. That is one race that we're watching tonight, but we're not going to talk about it too much throughout the course of the larger evening because there are several other races that will be closer, that will have more meat really on the bone to talk about. One of those being Ohio's 9th Congressional District's Republican primary. There are 5 candidates here. Stretch onto a second page, Madison Sheehan being the 5th person on this list. Once we get into the top 4, once we actually start getting numbers here, you'll only see the top 4 candidates on here. Anthony Campbell, newcomer to politics. Aaliyah Nadeem, an Air Force Lieutenant Colonel. State Representative Josh Williams. Former State Representative Derek Marin, who won this primary election 2 years ago and was the Republican Party nominee to face off against Marcy Kaptur in November of 2024. And then former Deputy ICE Director Madison Sheehan. The 5 of them are vying for the Republican Party's vote to move on and face Marcy Kaptur in November in what Democrats see as one of the largest pickup opportunities for them this year as they look to keep control of the House of Representatives. Back out here. Thanks to everybody who's joining us once again. If you're asking in the live stream about results yet, we do not have them at this point. We will get numbers here any moment now. Let us know in the comment section what race you are watching for. A lot of people are watching for Vivek Ramaswamy and for results in that race. I will have them for you hopefully momentarily. The first numbers that will come in will be the early vote. And then as we get throughout the night, we'll start to get the numbers from various counties around the area and the election day vote. In Ohio, you're allowed to start getting election results pretty much within 15 to 30 minutes of polls closing, because this is a state where elections officials are allowed to start preparing, unzipping, or opening ballots, the absentee ballots that come in. Then as soon as 7:31 hits, they just start feeding them into the machine. They have all the results already ready. They're able to publish those early vote results very quickly in Ohio. Other states don't let you start even processing the ballots until polls close, or until the election is over, and that takes a lot of time, and we've seen some messes caused by that in various elections in the past in other states. So we expect to see results tonight in Ohio, some real results. This is an interesting race, though, in the Ohio's 9th Congressional District for a couple of reasons. As, again, we are waiting for results in that gubernatorial primary that I know a lot of you are on here watching about. Once we get numbers, we'll bring them to you. Why this is interesting tonight, for those of you who haven't been following Ohio politics or Northwest Ohio politics. This seat has been represented by Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur, who has been in office for 22 terms. She looks to secure a 23rd term. This is how the election played out back in 2024. President Trump was on the ballot. Marcy Kaptur was one Democrat, one of a handful of Democrats running in a district that President Trump won back in 2020. Marcy Kaptur narrowly defeated Derek Barron in that election. We did not have these final election results on election night in November of 2024. We had to wait, I believe it was about 10 days to get the final numbers. When all of the counting was done on election night, the margin between Kaptur and Barron was less than 0.5 percentage point. Kaptur declared victory, but Barron was waiting until all the votes were counted, as he should have. But then once all of the numbers did come in, he narrowly lost to Kaptur. Libertarian Tom Pruss, we might talk about the Libertarians some more tonight, got 4.1% of the vote. More than 15,000 people voted for Pruss. This was an election decided by less than 3,000 votes. Who knows where the Libertarian votes would have gone if Tom Pruss had not been in this election. We can't say that, but it makes you wonder how this could have been different last year. And a reminder of how close this election was in 2024. So I say we'll have election results tonight. We might not have all of the results, but if races are blowouts, or if it's 2 to 5 percentage points by the end of the night with not a lot of outstanding absentee ballots, we'll know who is going to win those various races, which again are if you're just joining us, scrolling at the bottom of our screen throughout the night. We also have all of the results posted on 13abc.com. That was 2024's results. These are the 5 candidates running this time around. President Trump hasn't endorsed any of them in this election. He put out an endorsement list earlier today. He also put on Truth Social at about 3:30 individual endorsements for every candidate, every congressional candidate who's a Republican running for office in Ohio, except for 4 districts. 3 of them are considered safe for Democrats in Akron, Cleveland, and Columbus. The 4th is this one, a place where Republicans believe they can win in 2026. And I'll show you the presidential breakdown, the presidential election breakdown of this in just a moment as we look back to show you how red this district is. President Trump stayed out of this, which tells you either it was too close, and the president historically has not endorsed candidates that he think will lose either a general or a primary election, or he'll stay out of races if they're just too close to call. This may be the case in this election. Madison Sheehan, former deputy ICE director under President Trump, and then ICE director, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, served in the administration, didn't get the endorsement. Active Republican state lawmaker who has introduced more than 100 pieces of legislation, did not get the endorsement. Was endorsed by President Trump in 2024, did not get the endorsement. So President Trump had an opportunity to endorse in this primary. He did not. And that one storyline going into today, that we don't know where this race is going to go, frankly, because the Trump endorsement factor did not play into this. Now, Derek Marin has been up on TV with ads over the past several weeks touting the 2024 Trump endorsement, and perhaps that, along with the name ID that he gathered from challenging Marcy Kaptur, is enough to push him over the edge this year. We shall see. Why is this district such an important one for Republicans? Look at how this newly drawn 9th Congressional District has voted in the past 3 presidential elections. Before I do that, here's the new 9th Congressional District. The old one included Sandusky County and part of Wood County. We had to redraw maps in Ohio this year due to the way that our Constitution spells out the process by which maps need to be drawn in a bipartisan fashion. Ohio, the only state in the country required to redraw maps this year. Several others went ahead and did so voluntarily. Paulding, Putnam, Henry County added into the 9th District for this election. Henry County added, we thought, to try and get Senate President and now Lieutenant Governor candidate Rob McCulley into this race. He had been considering running in this election. Instead, he gets tapped by Vivek Ramaswamy to be his running mate, and that opened the door for 5 Republican candidates to cram into this primary election. This is the district as it shapes out. Back to these election results for presidential election years. This is a district, the newly drawn 9th, that voted for President Trump by more than 10.5 points in 2024. 2020, the margin was a little smaller. 2016, it was even narrower at just 4.8%. But every year, President Trump carried this district against Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris by at least 4.5 percentage points. So this is a district that is solidly Republican. Marcy Kaptur hasn't lost a general election in her career. She had the closest scare yet back in 2024. What will happen in 2026, and who will the Republican be in this election? All questions that we will wait to see tonight. Let me get back over to some of the chats and see, if we have any good questions in the chat, and if we need to also get into data for any other races. Drop your thoughts in the comments as we go throughout the night. Some dialogue happening on YouTube as well as Facebook. I'll let you guys continue the conversation there in the comment section. If you're watching on our streaming apps, welcome to you as well. Let's go down the list and talk about some of the other races that we are watching tonight across Ohio. It's not just the race for governor or Ohio's 9th District primary, and you can see the numbers are just starting to come in. The early vote numbers starting to trickle in. As promised, I'll show you some of the numbers as they first come in. I don't know where they're coming from either, but the first batch of votes have been dropped here in Ohio's primary election. Vivek Ramaswamy getting 84% of that initial vote to Casey Putsch, and who gets 15% of that vote. Heather Hill on the ballot for governor tonight. Votes for her will not count. Her running mate dropped out, and there were talks of racial slurs being used. And long story short, the Ohio Supreme Court comes in and rules that votes for Heather Hill will not count. She still appears on this graphic, though, for tonight. And within the next few moments, we would expect the Associated Press to call this race for Vivek Ramaswamy. We'll see the numbers coming in tonight. More numbers coming in the 9th Congressional District primary election. This might be the final 4 and the order in which they appear when all is said and done. Marin, Williams, Sheehan, and Nadeem. This could be the final 4. We'll see if this ends up flip-flopping, reversing, changing at all throughout the night. Other races we're watching. This one is really interesting on a couple of levels. This Ohio GOP treasurer primary. Wouldn't usually be talking too much about that or paying too much attention to this on the statewide or the national scale. But the Vice President of the United States is paying attention to this and mentioned this race today. That's because Vice President J.D. Vance endorsed Jay Edwards, former state rep, in this race. Christina Rogner, state senator, also running for treasurer. She got the endorsement of Vivek Ramaswamy. So dueling endorsements here in this race, and I think that just sets up a little bit of an interesting dynamic between Jay Edwards and Christina Rogner. The first bit of early votes that are coming in show this race will be a tight one as we move throughout the night. The early votes, 52% of them breaking for Jay Edwards, 47% are breaking for Christina Rogner. So I'm really watching this one tonight. Interested to see whether it's Vance's pick or Ramaswamy's pick that moves on. Robert Sprague should have, if this continues, an easy night and a quick night, defeating his GOP primary competitor in the race for Secretary of State. Robert Sprague is the current state treasurer who's trying to change offices. Robert Sprague had been considering running for governor, and then once pretty much Vivek Ramaswamy gets in the race and you see the momentum that he was building early on, Sprague decided to end that bid, change direction, launched a run for Secretary of State. All of Ohio's statewide elected officials are term limited after this year. So we're electing brand new statewide elected officials this year, which also raises the stakes of these primary elections. So Robert Sprague facing off against Marcel Stribich tonight, and the Ohio Supreme Court may get a new justice this year. This is an interesting one tonight for those of you who follow the court that makes decisions that impact all Ohioans, that rules on, has made major rulings on things involving redistricting or gun rights or abortion. All of these topics end up going before the Supreme Court, which is now dominated by Republicans. 6-1 conservative majority on Ohio's Supreme Court. We will figure out which Republican will be trying to unseat a sitting justice later this year. Jennifer Brunner up for re-election this year, a Democrat, the only Democrat on Ohio's Supreme Court. The state Republican Party, while they endorsed Vivek Ramaswamy almost a year before the primary election, decided to stay out of this race. So no GOP state party endorsement in Ohio's Supreme Court race. We'll let you know who's going to face Jennifer Brunner. Our first Associated Press projection of the night, Sherrod Brown will face John Husted in November, getting the official gold check mark over his primary competitor, Ron Kincaid. So Sherrod Brown will be back on your ballot this year. Of course, lost re-election in 2024 to Bernie Moreno, who is now in the U.S. Senate, and he's trying to get back into Washington. An interesting quirk about this is that this is not a 6-year Senate term that he is running for. If Sherrod Brown were to win in November, he would only serve for 2 years, meaning he'll be back on the ballot if he would choose to run again as an incumbent in 2030. This is the seat vacated by J.D. Vance, who became vice president, had to resign from his U.S. Senate seat. John Husted, the lieutenant governor of Ohio, was appointed to that spot. John Husted, good friends with Governor Mike DeWine, of course, was his running mate and got the appointment to the U.S. Senate, a seat that reportedly Vivek Ramaswamy was interested in pursuing as well. Speaking of Vivek Ramaswamy, let's come back out here to the big board. Another projection to make on this election night. Vivek Ramaswamy will be the Ohio Republican Party's choice to go on the ballot in November 2026 in the race for governor. The Associated Press projects that Ramaswamy will win tonight. 86% of the early vote has gone his way. Casey Putsch will not have enough to pull off the stunner of the night. So it will be Vivek Ramaswamy and Rob McCulley, his running mate, on your ballot in November versus these two. Former Ohio Health Department Director Dr. Amy Acton and former Ohio Democratic Party Chairman David Pepper. On the Republican side, Vivek Ramaswamy, the biotech entrepreneur, former presidential candidate, his running mate, somebody with a long list of credentials in the legislature, Rob McCulley from Napoleon, the Northwest Ohio native, currently serves as the Senate president in Washington, or in Columbus, rather. If he were to win, he would be second in line to the governorship to Vivek Ramaswamy. That is the running mates, and this is the ticket that we will see in November. The Associated Press giving it an early call here on this election night. Our first two race calls coming pretty early, which was to be expected. This treasurer primary might end up going up until the wire tonight. Again, really interested to see where this ends up coming out. Jay Edwards had the endorsement from Vice President J.D. Vance, and he ended up talking about that in TV ads recently. And then Christina Robner, of course, backed by Vivek Ramaswamy. So it's Vance and Ramaswamy, almost a proxy election for some voters, perhaps, who are really paying attention. You got to, and I'm sure there are those engaged voters out there. Maybe this doesn't paint the picture of all of them, but let me keep going back down the list here. Sherrod Brown going to win tonight, not a surprise, and we'll talk at 8 o'clock with our D.C. Bureau reporter Stephen Goen, who is in Ohio today, who's talking to voters who are coming out specifically for this election. What are they looking for as we head to November? We'll check in live with Stephen at the top of the hour. Other races we're watching tonight, a couple of other contested primaries for Democrats. Allison Russo, state representative and the former Democratic leader in the House, is running for Secretary of State on the Democratic ticket. Brian Hambly is also on the ballot. John Kulowitz, we expect to beat Elliott Forehand tonight in this Attorney General primary. And this would set the stage for a November election with likely Robert Sprague and Allison Russo for Secretary of State. In the Attorney General Dem primary, the winner of this, likely John Kulowitz, going to move on to face Auditor Keith Faber, who is running for Attorney General this year. Again, every statewide elected official in Ohio, except for the Supreme Court candidates, are term limited this year. So they are all trying to switch jobs, basically, this November. Governor Mike DeWine, the lone exception, of course, he will retire after a 50-year career in politics and be replaced by either Vivek Ramaswamy or Amy Acton. We will elect a brand new state house this year, and part of the state senate is up for re-election this year. This is really in Northwest Ohio, because we are covering Northwest Ohio, Toledo-based news station for those of you watching from outside the area. We're watching the first Senate district primary, one of the only primaries in Northwest Ohio in State House or Senate that's really going to be one to watch or closely contested. This one has been kind of a barn burner. It's gotten ugly, particularly on the ad front in the last few weeks. Craig Riedel is a former state representative who lost last November 2024 to Derek Marin in the primary election, I should say March 2024. Riedel was thought to be the candidate to go up against Marcy Kaptur in 2024, ends up losing that primary election for a host of reasons that we might get into over the course of the evening. Riedel trying to get back into politics. This time he's going to the state senate if it goes his way tonight. Jim Hoops is his competitor tonight. Active state rep, former state rep. Riedel has been on the airwaves with attack ads against Hoops this campaign season, talking about his vote on transgender athletes and Hoops' overall position on that. This is the first Senate district map, by the way, in Northwest Ohio. Fulton, Williams County down to Hardin County, and includes Findlay and the likes. So Riedel has been attacking Hoops for a procedural vote. Long story short, the ads have said that Hoops voted to allow men to play in women's sports. The vote that Riedel cites in all of these ads is actually a procedural vote that would have prevented the Save Women's Sports Act from being combined with an NIL bill that was time sensitive and needed to pass at the time in 2021 when this happened. When it came time to vote for the actual bill, Hoops did. He also voted for the transgender athlete ban that became law ultimately, that Governor Mike DeWine vetoed. Hoops voted to override the veto. There have been some AI-generated doctored mailers coming from Riedel's campaign attacking Hoops in this contest as well. How effective will those be? We shall see tonight as the numbers start to come in. The early numbers have this race going Craig Riedel's way. But this is an open seat left vacated by, his name comes up once again, Rob McCulley, who is the Senate president currently representing this district that includes a large swath of Northwest Ohio. So that area will get a new state senator after tonight. A couple of other state house primaries that we can talk about a little bit more in depth later in the night. Democrats will decide who will challenge and likely lose to Congressman Bob Latta in November. Let's talk about taxes now. Property taxes and the growing movement across Ohio to try and eliminate them. Probably is not going to happen. Let me get you off of that map. Probably not going to happen, eliminating property taxes altogether. But here's why it could. There's a group going around Ohio trying to collect signatures to get on the ballot in November with a constitutional amendment that would eliminate property taxes in Ohio. That would change the law of the land. That is what they're trying to do. They've collected about 300,000 signatures so far. They need to get more than 400,000. Plus, you would like to have some buffer room. 700,000 has worked in the past for citizen-led ballot initiatives to try and get on the ballot and qualify, because all these signatures have to be valid and they have to be actual voters. They face an uphill climb and a deadline of July 1st to collect the remaining hundreds of thousands of signatures that they need to try and make the ballot in November. But tonight, kind of a test of where voters are on property taxes and how they feel about them. A number of property tax issues on the ballot this year, as there are in every election. And what we've seen over the past couple of elections, general, primary, these things win at the ballot more than they lose still. There were only a few libraries across Ohio that saw levies fail. School districts won at the ballot in 2025. A lot of school districts that had lost previously won last year in Northwest Ohio. So there are some schools in Northwest Ohio who are asking you for more money this year, more property taxes. In one case, it's the first time the district has asked in more than a year. A couple of other ballot issues to talk about this year in Northwest Ohio. In Lucas County, two county-wide issues where every voter in Lucas County sees it on their ballot. One involves the Toledo Zoo. If this ends up passing, over the long term, voters and property owners will pay less on their tax bill because of this. Technically, it's new money, but they're going to get rid of two other levies that expire at the end of the year. Lucas County 911 needs a new tax levy. They say they needed some additional funding. I'll get into the nuances and some of the back and forth on that later tonight as well. Sylvania City Schools, one of the school districts we're watching tonight to try and get a levy passed. Sylvania, this is the one that hasn't asked voters for a levy in about a decade almost. If this were to pass tonight, it would generate more than $18 million per year for the school district at a time when the state share of funding is going down for these school districts across Ohio, more and more of them having to go to the ballot to try and fill budget gaps. Springfield also asking for a levy tonight. This would also be new money, would give the district about $4 million annually for current expenses. We're going to step away here on Action News Now and give ourselves a chance to touch base with some of our people across Ohio. I think at the top of the hour, we're still expecting to hear from our D.C. Bureau correspondent, Stephen Goen. Okay. And we're getting some information just behind the scenes as well. So I'm going to take a couple-minute break. If you are watching on the live stream, you'll see those commercials. If you're on our streaming apps, if you are kind enough to join us on any of the live streams tonight, whether that be YouTube or Facebook. No commercial for you, but I will send you away with, if this ever works for me, I will have the results scrolling on the screen automatically as they come in. There we go. Let me put this up full. We will be right back on Election Night 2026 in Northwest Ohio. Okay, welcome back to Election Night 2026. Vivek Ramaswamy is declaring victory in the race for governor of Ohio in the Republican primary. Let's listen into his watch party.
Where we are on a path to putting our state on our way to a zero income tax state, because it is your money, not the government's. And frankly, we can compete with states like Texas and Florida and Tennessee. We can wake up to an Ohio where our children are doing better in math and reading and writing, being taught how to actually perform well in our schools rather than indoctrinated with victimhood psychology. One where housing prices are going down because we're cutting the red tape to build more homes in our state, to make that American dream and home ownership more affordable to the next generation. And we can wake up to an Ohio where we are more united, because it is easier to connect with our fellow neighbors and to be united in a rising economic tide. That is one Ohio where we can wake up to in November, and that is where I will lead this state if you elect me this November. The other, I'll take applause for that, thank you. That's where we're headed. But there's a different version of how this could go if my opponent comes anywhere near the levers of power. Could be an Ohio where businesses are once again fleeing our state in droves, where you see a $21 billion plus income tax hike coming to you directly in 2027, one where our property taxes continue to go up, one where our public schools remain beholden to the bureaucracy that is choking the success of our students, and one where we celebrate victimhood instead of success. That's what the other Ohio looks like. I'm proudly the most pro-free enterprise, pro-liberty, conservative, and pro-capitalist governor this state will have ever seen, running against, unfortunately, what would be the first socialist governor than we have ever seen. And I want to say a word about the contrast here, because this is really important. The traditional Republican criticism of Amy Acton, and I'm sympathetic to this, is that she advanced and advocated for the lockdowns, which have not aged well, lockdowns of our public schools, where kids in Cincinnati public schools were shut out of their schools for 2 years, while my alma mater of St. X was closed for 5 days. Those kids in those public schools will never get those 2 years of their education back. That's unforgivable. One where businesses were shuttered, and we actually chased businesses and entrepreneurs to states like Florida or Texas, where they could thrive rather than in Ohio. That's the traditional Republican critique of Amy Acton, and I agree with it, because those were poor policy choices for her to advance and to advocate for. But I think the deeper criticism, and I think this is really important to understand, is it's not going to be a pandemic the next time around. It's going to be different, tough decisions that we need to make as a state. We don't know what those are going to be. It's part of electing a leader is you're not electing just a slate of policies. You're electing somebody who we believe as a people is actually fit to lead our state. And what disappoints me about Amy Acton, somebody who I will tell you, I was rooting for her success as an Ohioan and as an American. She was a Democrat, but Rob, you said it the day you accepted this nomination to be lieutenant governor, that you voted for her confirmation. You were rooting for her success. I was rooting for her success. I think I speak for everyone in this room. We were all rooting for the success of anyone who leads our state in a tough time. But what disappoints me is somebody who could not draw the distinction between older Ohioans who might have been at risk of death from COVID-19 versus younger second and third and fourth grade students who were not at risk of death from COVID-19, but who were shut out and are at risk of depression, anxiety, and learning loss as a consequence of those decisions. Someone who had no patience to distinguish between actually those who were naturally immune, who had been exposed to the virus and could be let back out from lockdowns versus somebody who had not. And the gall, the temerity to wear a white coat and signify to the public for hours on end that you were a scientific authority without actually drawing those basic distinctions that were actually guided by science reflects an utter laziness and abandonment of responsibility that our public deserves in our leaders. And when Rob and the other legislators told her that we had to take a more nuanced, science-driven approach, you want to know what she did? She quit. To me, that is the most damning indictment of somebody who wants to lead this state. I will never quit on Ohio. We will always do the work required to make the best decisions required to deliver you lower costs, bigger paychecks, better schools, to deliver you a revival of that American dream that I know exists, that American dream that I have lived in this state, that we want for your kids and for your families. We will stop at nothing to do the work, to make the hard decisions, not to run away from them, not to chase the front of a camera with a white coat, but to actually do the work, to understand how we're going to rebuild infrastructure to take Ohio to new heights, how we're going to wring out the waste, fraud, and abuse out of an abused Medicaid system, to put that money back in your pockets where it belongs, and to bring down health insurance premiums while we're at it, to make life more affordable in this state. So when our kids graduate, if you work hard and you play by the rules, you get to have a good life and then dream for an even better life for your kids. That you're free to speak your mind at every step of the way. That is my pledge to every person in this state who voted for me today and who will vote for us in November. Our pledge to you is that we will deliver you lower costs, bigger paychecks, and better schools. And my pledge to every person who does not vote for us this November is also lower costs, bigger paychecks, and better schools, and we will protect your right to complain about it at every step of the way. But what I will tell you is that I believe we're on the cusp of a new dawn for Ohio, one where we reconnect with our roots of ambition, the state that raised Neil Armstrong and John Glenn and the Wright brothers and Thomas Edison, the state that led the first industrial revolution, the state where Toledo led the world in glass production, the state where Akron led in rubber production, the state where Youngstown and Cleveland led in steel production, the state where Dayton led in computing, the state where my hometown of Cincinnati was known around the world as the Queen City, will once again be at the forefront of our country, the bleeding edge of our country from the center of our country. A state that patriots across this country actually flock to and flock back to, including so many of our kids and grandkids whom I have thought they were finding refuge in other states coming back to, not because we forced them to, but because this is the state in the United States, and dare I say, this is the state on planet Earth, where the best opportunities are actually available to them. That is why I'm running to be your next governor. It is not for fame, it is not for fortune. Our family has been blessed beyond our wildest imagination, beyond what my parents or Apurva's parents could have imagined just a few decades ago. But I am in this, and I speak for Rob and myself here. We are in this because we believe that together, with the complementary skills that we bring to the table, we are the two people in this state who can work together as a team to lead Ohio back to our true potential, to our greatest heights, to put more money in your pocket, to bring down those costs, and to give our kids the world-class education that is the birthright of every Ohioan. And so we are asking you tonight, on the night that we have secured our primary victory, thank you for everybody who got us through this finish line, with a historic margin. The final numbers are coming in. We're going to see them tomorrow morning, but I think what they will show you is that the Republican Party coming out of a primary for governor has never been more united than we are tonight. With that energy behind us, we now go to the next destination, the election in November, where we're going to ask every one of you to do your part, to show up. It might be a rainy night or by then a snowy night. Might be a night where, you know, things are unplanned, things happen. You never know. We're going to ask you to do your part and still show up. Not just once. Not just to vote once, but what I say is the equivalent of voting 10 times. That means you bring 9 other people out with you who otherwise would not have shown up to vote in an election. And don't just make it another Republican. Talk to your neighbors and your friends, and we do have friends. If we were Republicans, we have plenty of friends who are not yet Republicans, okay, who may vote with us this November.
Okay, I want to dip in here because Democrat Amy Acton has also been giving a speech at the same time as Ramaswamy. We've carried him for a while. Let's go over to Acton as Ramaswamy winds up.
Working families, their needs over the wants of billionaires. That's what we're going to do. My opponent says people are lazy and mediocre and not working hard enough. He does. Well, that is not the Ohioans that I know. I know it's not the Ohioans that you know. We are all working harder than ever. It doesn't add up, and that's why I will fight for good jobs and workforce training, and I am going to be a champion for small businesses in Ohio. We've got to get this right. And yes, you can't always make this up. Mr. Ramaswamy says that Ohio isn't the best state in the country. Let me be clear. When I am governor of the great state of Ohio, the entire country is going to know about how great we are. There ain't no doubt. Now, trust is everything. Trust is everything. I listen to people every day. I've been on the road again 2.5 years. Trust. I'm so honored to have earned the trust of Ohioans and your trust. I've stood up when it mattered most, and I will always, always stand up for Ohioans. I will always do this. Do you know who Ohioans can't trust? When we face the really, really hard issues of working families, it is that guy who flies around Ohio in his corporate jet because he can't be bothered to drive the 90 minutes on like I-71. It is the guy who treats Ohio like a flyover state. And when you are looking at a state from 30,000 feet, my opponent cannot possibly see the struggles and the stories that I am hearing on the road. For himself. That is what is happening here. I need you to know that I love Ohio. I love this state. It has given me the opportunity of a lifetime, coming from one where I know it might not have gone this way. When you love Ohio, you do not move your business to Texas before running for governor. You do not tell Ohioans that affordability is a buzzword, and you do not pitch tax schemes that line the pockets of billionaires while raising costs for the rest of us. I am an Ohio girl through and through. This is my home, this is my state, and if it wasn't for the kindness of the people of this state, I wouldn't be here, and I want every single kid in this state to have the opportunities I have had. Growing up in Youngstown, we didn't know what party you were. We knew what union you were in. We knew what food you made from the country you came from. And we knew that people and your neighbors would always have your back. There was a sense of justice that got steeped in me. Growing up in Youngstown, I learned what it was like to feel invisible. I would not be standing here today if it weren't for the people who refused to look the other way, and I'm going to be asking a lot of you and us to refuse to look the other way while my brother and I were suffering, while we see suffering in the state. Now, I am a scrappy kid from Youngstown, make no mistake, and scrappy kids never back down from a fight. Never. Yeah. Because that's what we have on our hands. We have a fight, and this isn't about political party, guys. It's not about that anymore. It is about extreme wealth, power, ideology, special interests, against everyone else. It's what David wrote about in his book, these playbooks being shoved through these state houses. I'm here tonight because we are seeing a people-powered grassroots campaign of Ohioans who all believe it's time for a change. We're seeing record numbers of people everywhere we go in the state. It does not know party. And everyone is ready for us to turn this around. And that's why we need all of you in this fight. In November, we are going to link arms. This movement energy, guys, record numbers of individuals giving to this campaign, crashing the Secretary of State website. We are going to literally link arms, and we are going to tell Mr. Ramaswamy in no uncertain terms, you cannot buy this state. You cannot buy Ohio. You can't buy this state. You can't buy us. You can't buy us. You can't buy us. You can't buy us. We can't let that happen because happen. So you will see me fight, and you will see me be tough, and I will address endless issues as your governor. But what you will never, ever see me do is pit us against one another.
Amy Acton and Vivek Ramaswamy giving their victory speeches here on election night as they turn the page to November in Ohio's race for governor. Glad we were able to bring you parts of both of those here live. Another race that is settled tonight is the one behind me. Sherrod Brown will move on to November as expected and face Jon Husted in this special Senate election. And it's going to be an expensive one. It's going to be a long campaign season. You might already be tired of it, and it hasn't gotten started yet. It will be expensive because, as our Washington correspondent Stephen Goen will tell us, as joining us live from Washington, this is one seat that both parties really want as we get into November. Let's talk about that, everything that we're about to see here in the months to come, and also tell us what you have seen and heard on the ground there in Columbus.
Well, I can tell you this is exactly the outcome we were expecting in the Democratic side. Like you mentioned, former Senator Sherrod Brown, he is now the Democrats' choice to go up against Jon Husted, the Republican incumbent, both hoping to represent Ohio in the U.S. Senate. With only about 20% of the vote in right now, Sherrod Brown has more than 92% of that. So a lot of momentum here behind him. He did have a little bit of competition in this race, Ron Kincaid, but Kincaid was always seen as a long shot here. Brown, a very familiar name in Ohio. I'm sure that name ID definitely helped him out and gave him what he needed to become the Democratic primary choice here. But like you mentioned, a lot of national attention and money is going to be in this race now because both parties believe this is a seat that they can take control of. Republicans believe that they can hold on to it. Democrats think they can flip it. So we'll be watching in the months ahead to see exactly how the campaign shakes out.
And of course, Sherrod Brown was just on the ballot 2 years ago when voters heard and saw a lot about him as he was running against Bernie Moreno. What were you hearing from voters who came out to cast ballots today about their reasons for coming out to the polls? What drove them to vote today?
The voters we spoke to, they were extremely motivated in this race. These voters we spoke to, they saw this primary as more than just choosing a candidate for the general election. They talked about all the things they were being motivated by, from the economy when it comes to grocery prices, gas prices, and the war in Iran. Also, on the Democratic side, wanting to push back on actions from the Trump administration. And these voters, the ones I talked to, they believe that Sherrod Brown can be the one who represents them in Congress. Many voters say they remember him over those years. He served 3 terms in the U.S. Senate. And they believe that he can represent their interest in Washington again because he's done it before.
All right, Stephen Goen joining us live from Washington tonight. Stephen, thank you very much. Or not from Washington, you're in Columbus tonight. We appreciate the time. Also speaking live right now is the aforementioned Sherrod Brown. He just took the podium. Let's go listen to him.
Demanding a senator who will work for Ohio, not for the utility companies, not for the drug companies, not for the insurance companies, not for big oil, not for Wall Street. Someone who will be on your side. That's what you and that's what Ohio voted for today. Together we're going to win. I'm in this fight with you and this fight alongside you every step of the way. Because when you love this country, you fight for the people who make it work. Thank you so much.
Okay, so a lot happening all at once there, really, on this election night. Sherrod Brown getting up and speaking as he leaves the podium now. Former Ohio Department of Health Director and now Democratic nominee for governor in the state of Ohio, Dr. Amy Acton, is still at the podium. We were able to take a little bit of sound from Vivek and from Acton, as they were both speaking, couldn't carry their whole speeches live as we would have hoped for you because they're both talking at the same time. I hope we gave them about the same amount of time tonight. We don't want to just, turn over the airwaves to one candidate or the other, but while they were speaking, we wanted to at least hear from both of them. I don't believe that John Husted has any events live tonight that we will be checking in on, but we did see Husted on social media earlier tonight, thanking President Trump for his support and for his endorsement. President Trump endorsed Husted, but also most 11 of the 15 Republicans running for Congress in Ohio on the House side. 4 of the races he didn't endorse in. 3 of them are safe Democratic seats. The 4th is Ohio's 9th Congressional District race. So the president did endorse John Husted in that race. This looks to be the end of Acton's speech there. Husted is up on TV just within the last week or two with his first set of advertisements in this election, as he looks to try and introduce himself to the voters who don't know him yet. This certainly should be a name that people in Ohio are familiar with by now, but unless you are realistically the governor or a U.S. senator, the casuals might not know you as much as some of the diehards who follow politics closely. There is on the left her running mate. That is former Ohio Democratic Party Chairman David Pepper. Pepper is running as lieutenant governor with no prior statewide political experience other than serving as the party chair. So Acton and Pepper on one side. On the other, it is Ramaswamy and McCulley. So those two watch parties and celebrations only just beginning. And I don't know for sure if Sherrod Brown is in Columbus or Cleveland. I believe he is in Columbus tonight. Some Cleveland area lawmakers are in the area or at his watch party there. Senate Minority Leader Nikki Antonio in the background of this shot as Brown goes around and takes photos with the people in the crowd. So I was talking to Stephen Goen there about that race, and I had led off with the fact that you might be tired of this election, this general election already, and it hasn't started, because I know a lot of you might still be tired from 2024's election when it was Bernie Moreno and Sherrod Brown in an election that crossed $500 million in spending. It was the most expensive non-presidential race in U.S. history. The election between Sherrod Brown and Bernie Moreno. Moreno is in the U.S. Senate now, serving a full 6-year term. He does not have to worry about a campaign this year. He won in 2024 by defeating Sherrod Brown. You would expect that he'd be on the campaign trail this year trying to support John Husted's attempt to defeat Sherrod Brown, as Husted looks to maintain his seat in Washington. Husted, again, was appointed to that Senate seat to fill the vacancy of J.D. Vance once he got elected as the vice president. So John Husted, if he were to win, would have to run again for re-election 2 more years later. So this puts Ohio in an interesting position where we're having a Senate election, a U.S. Senate election, every other year for, well, let's think about it. 2022, J.D. Vance, 24, Sherrod Brown and Bernie Moreno. 26 is this one. We'll have another one in 28, and then we'll have another one in 30 because of the way that this is all playing out and the stars are aligning, if you will, with deadlines and with appointments, etc. I don't know if I don't think I have the stat on me right now, but the 2024 election, when I was looking into Husted or a potential Vance replacement, we didn't know who it was going to be yet. John Husted was certainly rumored to be in the mix. Looking back at previous special elections in Ohio Senate history, and not once did the person who was appointed to the seat win the seat in the subsequent election, because you're only there temporarily. You still have to win at the polls in order to finish out the term, if the term is long enough, like it is in this case. So John Husted looks to, in a way, make some political history in Ohio, to be the first person to be appointed to the Senate and win the subsequent election to the U.S. Senate. So maybe we put the Senate race behind us for the night as we take one more live look into Sherrod Brown's watch party. The events and the partying getting underway early at these watch parties in Columbus and elsewhere between Ramaswamy's campaign, Acton's campaign, Sherrod Brown's campaign, all trying to drum up a little bit of enthusiasm and excitement as we now turn the page to the general election. In these races where there weren't really going to be surprises tonight, but we get a lot of this ceremonious activity out of the way. The victory speeches are all done. And now the real fun can begin when we start to figure out who is winning these races that we didn't know how they were going to go whenever the night began. This is one of them. Let's talk about the results in Ohio's 9th Congressional District primary election. Derek Merrin with almost half of the vote right now. This appears to be, if the trends continue, Merrin's race to lose tonight. Setting up a potential rematch in 2026's general election with Merrin and Marcy Kaptur for what is sure to be one of the most expensive U.S. House races in the country, as Democrats look to protect Marcy Kaptur, who has served in Congress longer than any other woman. She has already beat Derek Merrin, but that was in a different district before it added thousands of Republican voters and did not do the same for Democratic voters. So this is the early results of this. I want to go into a tool that I have behind the scenes to look at some of the individual counties and the numbers that are in this race. That looks to be big enough for you all to see it at home. So where are the votes coming from right now? Lucas County is going to contribute the most amount of votes in this election and every election that involves the 9th district. So this is the one where you have to win. This is a county where only 10% of the vote is in right now. Here it is a little bit bigger on your screen. So only 11% of the vote, 10% of the vote is in from Lucas County. Derek Merrin and Josh Williams both are from Lucas County. And in order to defeat Marcy Kaptur, who is of Toledo, you have to overperform in Lucas County as a Republican. And that is just not something that has happened the last 2 elections to the point where Republicans would be victorious. Adding a couple of other Republican stronghold counties could help the GOP in this year's election. But only 10% of the votes in from Lucas County right now, so a little bit too early to read too much into these results. The other counties might be a little bit more in. 20% of the vote in Erie County, where Merrin has 400 vote lead. Ottawa County, Merrin leads in by less than 100 votes. There's one county where where Josh Williams rather is leading right now, and that would be Paulding County, out in the western border of Ohio. Josh Williams with 43% of the votes, is about 19% has been counted in Paulding County. Defiance County, he picks up a couple hundred more votes, but Derek Merrin is going to likely carry Defiance County if these numbers end up holding. Williams County also carried by Derek Merrin. So Merrin has the lead in all of these counties with at least 45% of the vote in all of them, except Paulding County, where Josh Williams has the early lead, about a quarter of the vote in, and some of these more sparsely populated counties won't be as significant in terms of the overall construction of this district. Take this sliver in Wood County, for example. 12% of the vote in from our Wood County friends, and they have, just like the other counties, gone Derek Merrin's way. So the early trend here in all of these counties is about 40 to 50% of the initial vote. A lot of this, the early vote, has gone to Derek Merrin. Madison Sheehan is second in Ottawa County, her home county, and Erie County. But besides that, Josh Williams is the second place candidate in every other county. So judging that trend, this, as we said when we got the first couple hundred votes in about an hour ago, this might end up being our final total, or our final order of the night, going Marin, Williams, Sheehan, Aliyah Nadeem, Anthony Campbell coming in at 5% of the vote. So this might be our final order. We will see. Again, tens of thousands potentially votes out there. Only about 11% in the most populated county in Lucas County have been counted so far. So let's check out some of the other races that we didn't know how they were going to unfold as we went into the night. This treasurer primary, I'm telling you, this is going to be close. This will come down to the wire and is one of the more intriguing matchups of the night. Because again, this is the one where you have dueling endorsements. Vice President J.D. Vance endorses Jay Edwards. Vivek Ramaswamy endorses Christina Rogner. Vivek Ramaswamy and J.D. Vance don't differ on a lot, at least publicly, and this was a rare instance where they did. Jay Edwards, some background on both of these candidates as I find my page. Bernie Moreno, that's the other candidate I was thinking. There was another statewide elected official who has endorsed Jay Edwards. It is Bernie Moreno. So Moreno and Vance both throwing their support behind Edwards. Christina Rogner, the state senator from Hudson, Ohio, is endorsed by Vivek Ramaswamy and legislative leadership in the Republican Party. One of the things she had said during the campaign is, like Donald Trump, she graduated from the Wharton School of Business. Jay Edwards, longtime Democrat seat, he flipped in order to get into the legislature when he did back in 2016. 2017 to 25, he served in the House, was House Finance Chairman from 23 to 24. Not an easy job where you have to do a budget, you have to put a state budget together. He takes credit because he was finance chairman on his campaign for sponsoring tax cuts, $3.2 billion in tax cuts and universal school choice. So Jay Edwards and Christina Rogner, really interested to see where this race ends up going tonight. But we do have some gold check marks to give out in other primaries that will not be nearly as close as Ohio's Republican treasurer primary. Robert Sprague going to win and move on in November as the Republican Party's Secretary of State nominee to face the Democratic Party's nominee for Secretary of State, Allison Russo, the state representative and former Democratic leader in the Ohio House of Representatives, defeats physician Brian Hambly, or an oncologist. He's a cancer doctor. He was the first Democrat to announce, one of the first really candidates of any office to announce that they were running in tonight's election. So a long campaign comes to an end for Brian Hambly, but Allison Russo will be the one that's victorious tonight. I already told you Sherrod Brown will easily walk away from tonight, heading on to November. Didn't really have to campaign hard for it. This is an interesting seat that just give me 1 second, make sure I don't have any other races to call. I do. I think I have just one race to call that I wanted to let you know about as we were talking about all the others. Then I'll get back to the Supreme Court. John Kulowitz going to be the Democrats' nominee for Attorney General later this year, which is as expected. Elliot Forhan, one-term state representative, had a lot of scandals follow him and is not well received by many Democrats in his own party. There were calls for him to step aside and to end this campaign from members of both parties for a social media post earlier this year about executing Donald Trump. Other Democratic candidates condemned the move back then, but John Kulowitz is going to be your Attorney General candidate to face Keith Faber in the fall. Again, every statewide elected official in Ohio, except for the governor and Supreme Court seats, all of these statewide elected officials, Secretary of State, Auditor, Attorney General, Treasurer, are all trying to change jobs because they're all term limited. So there will be familiar names on your ballot this November, but they'll be running for different posts than what they currently hold. John Kulowitz grew up in Columbus, Ohio State, Yale Law School. He's argued cases before the U.S. Supreme Court. He has been a member of the Upper Arlington City Council in Central Ohio since 2020. He will pitch himself to voters in this general election as a lawyer, not a politician. And this is the chief legal officer for the state of Ohio, the job in which he seeks. Keith Faber will be his general election opponent. Keith Faber is the current state auditor. He had been in the Ohio House. He was the Senate president in the legislature with a long resume of political experience in Ohio. He actually replaced Dave Yost as Attorney General or as auditor back in 2019 when we had more musical chairs happen. All these guys got into office pretty much at the same time, not pretty much, at the same time in 2019, winning in the 2018 election. And then we fast forward 8 years later, and some of them are following each other. In the case of Auditor Faber, who replaced then Auditor Dave Yost, now trying to replace now Attorney General Dave Yost. So the musical chairs will unfold, and that game will play out. Here's the Republican primary for the U.S. or for the Ohio Supreme Court. This is the seat currently held by the only Democrat on the Ohio Supreme Court, Jennifer Brunner. Here are the early results. Colleen O'Donnell with 33% of the vote, Andrew King 29% of the vote. This is one where nobody might get more than 35 or 40% of the vote. Again, Republicans chose to stay out of this. The state party did not endorse in this primary seat. Who knows who's going to win going into this evening? Wondered if maybe Jill Lanzinger would have a shot, an appeals court judge in the 9th District endorsed by the Cleveland Plain Dealer and Cleveland.com. Colleen O'Neill is a former Franklin County Common Pleas judge. Andrew King in second place there as a appeals court judge in the 5th District. So we will find out which one of these Republicans will be the one who will challenge Jennifer Brunner in November. The only Democrat on the Ohio Supreme Court, that's one that the party wants to keep, but they also have to balance trying to elect Sherrod Brown, try to save Marcy Kaptur, potentially upset one of these statewide candidates and win a statewide elected office. So Democrats have their hands full coming up in November, and this is one of the things that will be on their plate. This Senate seat, trying to keep Jennifer Brunner on the bench. If she loses, Republicans will have a 7-0 majority in the Ohio Supreme Court. Senate District 1 primary, one that we've talked a lot about. Craig Riedel up by 11 percentage points right now over Jim Hoops. I wonder if I have a breakdown of where these votes are coming from in this contest yet. Let's see. State House, we want to go to District 1. State Senate, I beg your pardon. About 40% of the vote is in Hancock County, and that is where Riedel has about 600 more votes than Jim Hoops. That is certainly helping. Other counties that have good percentages of the votes in, Van Wert County in this district with 62% of its vote in, and Riedel with an 800 vote lead over Hoops there. Defiance County, Craig Riedel up by 20 percentage points. Fulton County with 19% of the vote in, only 16% of the vote in Williams County. Just got a big sum of votes coming in from Henry County. 84% of the vote now in Henry County, and that changed things significantly. Let's see if this is caught up yet. This should refresh any second now. Those numbers just got plugged in on the back end. A giant sum of votes coming in from Henry County, and they are pretty much all for Jim Hoops. 77% of that vote now in Henry County is going to him. Craig Riedel only getting 726 votes. That's the kind of margins, those are the kind of margins from future vote drops that Hoops is going to need to make up the little deficit that he had early on. That's instantly closed, and now we have a brand new ball game. Has this pretty graphic refreshed yet? It has not. Let me get that a refresh and come back over here. 50.3% to 49.8%. In Ohio, an automatic recount is triggered if an election falls within 0.5%. This might be another one that comes down to the wire, and this could be another instance of a race where we don't have the results at the end of the election. Craig Riedel from Defiance looks to get back to the legislature. Jim Hoops from Napoleon in Henry County, his home county, delivering him a sizable margin of victory here, 84% of the vote in. Hoops will win Henry County. From there, it's about making up ground in other places where Craig Riedel came away with a good percentage of the early vote. 41% of the vote in Hancock County, which seats Findlay. Riedel with 600 more votes in that county than Hoops. Defiance County, which is Craig Riedel's home county, only 26% of the vote is in right now. So these are our two home counties, Defiance and Henry County. Defiance for Craig Riedel, Henry County for Jim Hoops. 84% of the vote is in now in Henry County. Take you back to some of the other results from the night. Let's get even more local as we continue to go down the chart. Has this updated yet for me, by the way? Yes, it has. So it's a little bit behind the back end, but this does a good job, this program that we have that updates all these results. So come back to you, Craig Riedel and Jim Hoops. A couple of other primaries that we're watching for state house races. Nothing that's going to shock, I don't think, at this hour or that is worth touching on. We could have an interesting look at this. This is the race to decide which Democrat will go up and likely lose to Congressman Bob Latta in November, just because of how the district is drawn, that Republicans are heavily favored in that district. Which Democrat is going to spend the next several months campaigning against Bob Latta? We'll find out tonight. Very close election so far. 103 votes separate first and third place in this contest. How about the Toledo Zoo? This is a county-wide ballot issue that, if this passes, like it is on track to do at this point, you'll ultimately pay less in the long run as a result. Because right now the zoo is trying to scale back its reliance on taxpayer dollars. One way of doing that is to eliminate or let two levies that it currently has on the books expire at the end of this year and replace it with this new levy. So that is why it is on the ballot as technically new money. It's listed as a 0.9 mil 10-year levy, so it will replace two expiring levies, which are a combined 1.65 mil. So there's the math on this. That is how that will ultimately end up saving you. 911 systems want some more money in Lucas County too. And about 60% of the vote so far is supporting having a tax increase to pay for 911 systems. There was a split here between Sheriff Navarre, who supported keeping the current millage rate, which was 0.7. He wanted to keep the current rate. Commissioner Lisa Sebecki and others said we want to be proactive rather than preventative if we run into any funding issues down the road. This is expected to generate $9.2 million annually. Cost would be $28 a year per $100,000 of home value. There we go. So it would raise your taxes here if this ends up passing, but it would generate $9.2 million annually for the purpose of funding 911 radio towers, emergency radios, phone systems, servers, dispatch software. It's not for staffing, it's for all of the others. 911 phone system is going to reach the end of its life in 2027. So that is what this tax increase is for, and right now none of these countywide issues are close. This is the first time I'm checking in on the results for some of our school districts around the area that are also asking for money. Let's start with Springfield schools. I think these could be close. Springfield and Sylvania. Here's where Springfield is early on. 53% of voters going against the Springfield schools levy, 46% supporting it. And that's the percentage. Look at the numbers. 352 people, 304 people have come out so far to vote on this levy. I don't have the percentage of the vote in right now in Lucas County to know how much there is outstanding, but races like this show us how important every vote is. One family sitting on the sideline or one nuclear unit, one friend group could be the the deciding factor in something passing or failing, in somebody winning or losing in a lot of these elections. Springfield wants about $4 million in new money from voters for daily operations. If this levy ends up passing, it would be an additional $3.9 million. Here's the other one we're watching. It is Sylvania. This could be bad for Sylvania school administrators in that they will have to face some tough decisions. They've told us if this ends up failing. There was a campaign against the Sylvania levy. Turnout in Sylvania was impressive. I'll get to some turnout numbers if I have that sheet here in a moment. But look at these numbers, 59% to 41%. Sylvania City Schools levy on track to fail at this hour if everything continues on this trend. There were strong turnout numbers across Lucas County this year. We didn't have the kind of numbers in Lucas County this year that we had in 2024 for the primary election. Turnout this year is higher than it was 2 years ago. I have the number written down from earlier tonight. As of 7:15, with still 15 minutes left to go, we had almost 20% voter turnout in Lucas County, which historically, in recent history, has been one of the lowest turnout counties in Ohio in primary and general elections. 17.5%, fourth lowest in Ohio. That was the turnout for the 2024 presidential election. There wasn't anything at the top of the ticket to excite voters, but there were a lot of school levies. There were a lot of tax and money issues. This year, more people coming out to vote. And we had talked earlier about the property tax issue and how heated people in Ohio are about rising property tax bills. And is there an appetite still for schools to go to the ballot and win? Right now, 2 of the new money requests that we have are currently losing, one of them by 427 votes, still with several more to go. Here are the early turnout numbers that I saw in Sylvania. 26% voter turnout on average was the voter turnout per precinct in Sylvania. This is as of this was election day voting as of, or maybe this was total voting. Forgive me, this was entire day of plus early voting numbers factoring into this turnout calculation. The 2 precinct areas that had the most people come out to vote today were Springfield and Sylvania in Lucas County, that both have school issues on the ballot. Now, outside of Toledo proper, of course, Toledo proper is going to beat that. If you're looking outside of Toledo and all the other municipalities and precincts in Lucas County, the one that had the most turnout in terms of sheer numbers was Sylvania and Springfield. Percentage-wise, Springfield was about 21% voter turnout, Sylvania 27%. So both of those are above the overall number for Toledo voters. So Springfield, it's close for the school levy. Sylvania, it's not as close. We also saw strong turnout today in Harding Township, Providence Township, Jerusalem Township, Monclova Township had several people come out as well. Good turnout, about 21% on average if you look at all the precincts there. So better turnout numbers for Lucas County than in previous elections. And school levies could have been the driving factor in that. A little bit of a different situation in Otsego. They're not asking for a new levy. They're asking for an income tax. This out here, 0.25% income tax for Otsego schools. We have hardly any votes in. There's 24 votes that have been counted so far. This is one that we'll watch throughout the night. This will be a 5-year income tax collection, about $1.1 million annually. There were school levies that failed for Otsego in 2023 and 2024 in Wood County. So we'll check back in with Otsego once more numbers come in. Evergreen local schools also could have some administrators down there holding their breath tonight. This is also an income tax request, but this is a renewal. So this is not new money. This does not increase taxes, but it's another test of asking for tax money from voters. Northwestern Wood County Ambulance Authority is also looking for some new money today. No votes in there just yet. I'm watching the Swanton Parks and Recreation levy tonight. Also watching Richfield Township Fire, Lake Township roads. You have a little bit of everything. Schools, ambulance district, parks and rec, fire, roads. As those numbers come in, we'll continue to check back in with them and let you know how things are developing. Here's how Ohio's 9th Congressional District primary is developing. We could be in a situation where nobody in this race gets more than 50% of the vote by the end of the night, but the leading vote getter at the end of this evening could be Derek Marin if all holds tonight. This was him in November of 2024, walking into Holland Gardens where a Republican watch party was for the general election back in 2024. At this hour, we did not know who was going to win that race. At that hour, we knew Donald Trump endorsed Derek Marin. Tonight, it's a little bit different. Donald Trump did not endorse Derek Marin in this primary election. There were 4 other Republicans in the race, and still are. But Donald Trump decided to stay out of this primary election. You would assume he will endorse the candidate who wins and moves on to the general election, but no endorsement in the race from the President of the United States. There was a time, if you remember, earlier this year when Vice President J.D. Vance came to Toledo, and all 4 of these people you see on the screen made their presence known at this rally and showed their face or shaking hands, getting around, talking to Republican voters at this J.D. Vance rally in Toledo earlier this year. There was speculation that the president or the vice president might make an endorsement in this race. He ultimately did not during that rally. And that kind of left it wide open. A Trump endorsement in this race, there were polls that said that would be the deciding factor. That never came. So a lot of voters left to lean on what they knew. And for so far, 6,892 voters in the 9th District, that was Derek Marin, the one that they knew last year, the candidate who they threw out against Marcy Kaptur in 2024. So this won't be a new name. You won't struggle with a lack of name ID in a general election as much as if you are a political newcomer or you are on the ballot in a lot of these places for the first time, like Derek Marin was last year. On the flip side, there might be more enthusiasm for Democrats to show up in 2026 than there was for Republicans to show up in 2024. Donald Trump won't be on the ballot, for one. Number 2, in this 2026 election, it is a midterm election, the first of a presidency technically, and in those elections, the president's party loses seats in the House. It happens almost every midterm election if it's the president's first term in office. This is a little bit of a unique situation, of course, because Trump was 45, Biden was 46, Trump was 47. But in the midterm election for 45 and 46, party who was in power in the White House, 2020 it was Republicans, 2018 it was Republicans, 2022 it was Democrats. Those parties lost seats. So, how is November going to play out? It's tough to tell. It could go either way, but Republicans will have a leg up in 2024. If you're just joining us, let me show you why. And this is also the race that we've talked the most about tonight, outside of maybe the race for governor when we had some of those speeches. I don't know why breaking news is playing there, but we'll pretend that there's breaking news. Breaking news, we have a new congressional map. I've heard that so many times for various states over the past few months. Ohio was the only state required to redraw its congressional map this year. The redistricting war that some have called it was launched by the Trump administration, pushing red states to redraw maps to try and shore up the Republican majority in Congress. Started with Texas, and then Democratic states retaliated, California being one of them, Virginia most recently, more recently Virginia. Most recently, it was Republicans in Florida redrawing their map. I think just this week, perhaps it was yesterday, Governor Ron DeSantis was on CNBC, perhaps, and he said that he had signed the map for the first time, and that is going to help Republicans. If the map ends up not getting struck down in court, that's something that we'll have to watch for. But this is Ohio's new map. Had to redraw the map because of the way that Ohio's Constitution spells out the redistricting process. Long story short, if there's no bipartisan buy-in, the map can't last for the whole decade, which is what's supposed to happen in redistricting. Every time there's a census, you get together and you redraw a map based on the new lines, based on the new population data for your entire state. Ohio did that in 2021, but it wasn't a bipartisan agreement at the end of the congressional map-making process, so 4 years later, we had to go back and do it again. That happened last year. Added Putnam, Paulding, Henry County into the mix, subtracted Sandusky County, and a little bit of a sliver of Wood County that was in this district. It ends up becoming much more reliable for Republicans. This is the margin of victory in the last 3 presidential elections for this new congressional district. We're not talking about the old one. President Trump carried this newly drawn district by 10.6 percentage points in 2024, 6.7 in 2020, 4.8 in 2016. So, as I said, Republicans will have a leg up going into this election, going into November, because of the way the map is drawn. And if the numbers end up holding, it will be Derek Marin who will work to try and give it another whirl. And maybe this time will be different for the former state representative. Let me check in on a couple of the other races. This Hoops-Riedel matchup still very close, 0.6 percentage points. 99% of the vote is now in from Henry County, so he's not going to get any more help from there, but he got the help he initially needed. Fulton County also will go to Jim Hoops. He will win that county. So what this tells me is the sizable lead by Craig Riedel comes from the early votes. Now that more Election Day votes are coming in, we're seeing that lead start to shrink that Riedel had built up early. Needs to continue to have a strong showing in Hancock County to win. Does Craig Riedel. His home of Defiance County, not as populated as Henry County. 26% of the votes are in so far from Defiance County, and Craig Riedel does have the lead there. We'll continue to check back in on that one. Jay Edwards pulling away a little bit more from Christina Rogner. This, I do still think this will be a close one, but 55-45 would not surprise me if that's how this ends up going. By the end of the night. Still a lot of outstanding vote in Toledo and Lucas County. Only 9% of the vote in here in Lucas County. A tale as old as time. A tough county, they tell us, to count the votes because you have to go from the western edge and the eastern edge, and there's a lot of driving and commuting and whatnot. Lucas County, historically, it's in my 5 years here, has been one of the last in our viewing area to complete numbers for the night. So that matters a lot for this 9th Congressional District race where Marin has an early lead, and all of the votes are in from Henry County, which he won. All of the votes are almost in Fulton County, though there are not as many to be counted out there. 92% of the vote in from Fulton County, and almost half of the vote is in from Erie County. So these circles on this map will get larger as more ballots are cast. Uncounted votes, you can see where they're outstanding. The larger the circle, the more uncounted votes there are. Putnam County will deliver a lot of those outstanding votes right now, later tonight, whenever that ends up coming in. So not sure what's happening down in Putnam County, but all of the other counties in Northwest Ohio are reporting numbers so far, and Derek Marin is leading in every county on the screen that you see in red. Josh Williams leads early on in Paulding County. While I am on this page, let me go to the race for governor. And Of course, we know already that this is said and done. Vivek Ramaswamy is going to win tonight and move on to face Dr. Amy Acton in November. 82% of the vote for Vivek Ramaswamy here so far on this evening, which I think would be higher than previous primary elections in gubernatorial races in Ohio. Jim Renacci and Joe Blystone ran against Governor Mike DeWine in the 2024 or 2022 Ohio GOP governor primary. In that election, what were our results? What was the percentage of the vote that Governor Mike DeWine had in the 2020 primary? I wish I had that number memorized, but unfortunately there is a limit to what the brain will allow me to hold in it. 48.1% of the vote Mike DeWine got in the primary election in 2024. So this would be double what Governor DeWine got in 2024, where he was facing a lot of pushback from another topic we'll be hearing about over the course of the next several months in this election, in this general election, COVID-19. Governor Mike DeWine was the leader of the state during COVID. Dr. Amy Acton was his health director during COVID. And that caused a lot of strife within his own party of people not wanting to support him. They made that known in the primary election. 28% of the vote went to Jim Renacci, 21% went to Joe Blystone in that. So Mike DeWine still won. The incumbent still won by 20 points, and he would go on to win the general election by an even wider margin. But that was the last time we had a primary election in Ohio in the race for governor. I wanted to see if Casey Putsch would come close in any of these counties. Seneca County, he got 30% of the vote. Adams County, he got 30% of the vote. This is early on, so these are the early numbers. Not a lot of broad support for Casey Putsch across the board. Vivek Ramaswamy, it is a different story. 85% of the Lucas County voters who came out went his way. That's above the state mark of 82%. Wood County voters, about 83% of them came out and supported Ramaswamy. So the deep red, dark red on this map is where Ramaswamy had at least 70% of the vote in pretty much all of these counties. Casey Putsch cracks 30% in Adams County and Seneca County so far. But by and large, this is a runaway win for Vivek Ramaswamy. Some people wanted to see where he would end up falling once the night was done, but it's looking to be high 70s or 80s percentage-wise for him to fend off Casey Putsch of Northwest Ohio. 47% of the vote so far in Ohio's 9th has gone to Derek Marin. Let me take a break from talking real quick and let somebody else join the stream here. It is I-Team reporter Sean Haggerty. He had done several preview stories for us leading up to this election about some of the ballot issues. I want to play his story on the school levies because he talks to school administrators about why they're going to the ballot this year, including in Sylvania, which again had a no campaign going against it, where people are actively trying to campaign against this Sylvania school levy. And at this hour, with 2,500-ish votes in, this levy is poised to fail if things don't change. Again, not a lot of votes are in Lucas County at this point. So this could be a reflection of the early vote. Maybe day of vote changes things. You need that if you're in Sylvania, where voter turnout was strong today. Sean Haggerty explains to us the dynamics of school levies in this year's election.
It's pretty clear not everyone is on board with a proposed additional levy in Sylvania schools. Some, though, are showing their support. District leaders say their financial forecasts show that there'll be deficit spending unless something changes.
Keeping a close eye on how we're spending money. Inflation, prices of doing business is up. We determined it was the right time.
As voters here consider a $7.9 million additional levy, School leaders in Maumee watch their financial forecasts as well.
We're having those conversations now, knowing that we are at that critical point based on our forecast. And we're looking at approximately $2 million that we would need to correct to have a balanced budget. And that's our responsibility to balance that budget. And we really have two options to do that. We either raise revenue or reduce expenditures.
Maumee schools are not on the May ballot, although they may be in the future. The district was getting 34% of its revenue from the state. In the new state budget, it's now 21%.
We're at that critical point where our revenue and expenditure lines have crossed in the wrong way.
With cuts to districts, statewide levies are popping up all over. Not only Sylvania, but Springfield schools are on the May ballot with an additional levy. A new state budget is 2 years away, so it does not seem like help is coming from Columbus. Local voters and local districts will now shoulder the load.
Legislators need to really look at their priorities and revisit how public schools are funded.
Sean Hegarty.
Sean Hegarty reporting live, or not reporting live, reporting for us on school levies across the area. A couple of updates, vote total-wise. Still waiting for numbers from Otsego, Evergreen local schools. The numbers have not changed since our last check-in, but if you are just joining us, these are some of the school issues that we're watching tonight. School money requests. Sylvania, Springfield, both so far trailing in their efforts to try and get some new money from voters. Otsego and Evergreen also are asking for different types of monies, both income tax requests in those cases. Evergreen against 100 to 87. The vote breakdown so far, Otsego 14 to 10. I have a couple people asking in the comments about some other races. Let me get to some of those that you are asking about. The Toledo Zoo levy. This is the one where if it ends up getting approved, it'll cost you less in the long run. That seems like an easy sell for voters. 61% of people who came out today say they're good with that. It is an additional levy technically, but 2 levies are expiring that combine to equal more. Lucas County 911, the other Lucas County levy that we're watching tonight. 59% of the vote supporting that new 911 levy. Bob Latta running unopposed in the 5th Congressional District primary. He awaits the winner of the 5th District Democratic primary, which has been fairly close tonight with the top 3 candidates in this race, which again, this is a very Republican-dominant district. The winner of this likely to lose to Bob Latta in November, but still a candidate nonetheless. Somebody has to run in these elections. Voters do have a choice, but in a lot of these cases in Ohio, the maps are drawn in a way that one party automatically has an advantage over another, like in Cleveland or Columbus, where the districts are drawn to have Democrats with like 70 or 80% of the voting population make up their districts. So in those seats, Republicans don't really have a shot. In some Republican seats, Democrats really don't have a shot. So that's the nature of the way that the maps are drawn. That is the 5th District, which changed a little bit for our viewers in the 5th District as well. Here's Ohio's congressional map. I'll put it up over here, make it a little bit bigger. The 5th District included some of this before. It gets condensed a little bit and adds Lorraine. So Latta's district no longer will spread as far and wide. It gets a little bit more condensed. I believe he had some of these counties over here. These 3 end up moving into Marcy Kaptur's district. Latta's district ends up shrinking width-wise, and height-wise a little bit. He ends up adding actually in the southern part of his district. So this is the new map for Ohio's 5th and 9th congressional districts. A lot of this ended up staying the same whenever redistricting did happen. Republicans and Democrats made a deal in Ohio to avoid a potential ballot referendum and legal challenges, but also a map that could have maybe given Republicans 13 safe seats instead of right now the map is 10 to 5, 10 Republicans to 5 Democrats. the newly redrawn map is really 12-3. Down here in Southwest Ohio is one of those districts that technically now is a Republican district, but it's represented by Democratic Representative Greg Landsman. He faces a general election challenger in Eric Conroy, who Donald Trump endorsed. That was a Republican primary. Conroy's going to win that and then move on to face Landsman in November. Donald Trump endorsed in this primary. He didn't endorse in this one. He also didn't endorse in Columbus in the 3rd District, Joyce Beatty. He didn't endorse in the 11th District, Shontel Brown, and he didn't endorse in the 13th. Those 3 seats are safe for Democrats, they believe, going into this election because of the way the maps were drawn. Republicans could have given us a 13-2 map. What ended up happening was they went to Democrats and said, we will make a deal with you that you will get on board with this map. That is, instead of being 13-2, and it will be 12-3. Protect these 3 seats, make it harder for Landsman to win, and make it really difficult for Marcy Kaptur to win. In exchange, Democrats don't get another seat lost, guaranteed. They were going to take away Amelia Sykes' seat in that 13-2 map. But that map, Republicans could have done that. If they would have done that, they could have seen a voter referendum at the ballot box. Voters could have had the chance to overturn that map, and they likely would have in this environment. At least that was the thinking from both sides of the aisle. So Democrats ended up striking a deal with Republicans to get this map. Republicans avoid having to defend it at the ballot box or in litigation, and they end up getting a map that lasts until 2030. 2030 would be the last election we have with that map. 2031, we would redraw for 2032, if you're following me. Otherwise, if it was not a bipartisan map, it would have only lasted for 4 years, and we would have had to do redistricting again. So there were a lot of complexities that ended up coming into the equation if Republicans don't make a deal with Democrats. They ultimately do. That gives us this map that we are looking at tonight. Turnout has been better tonight than it was in the May 2025 primary election. It was already surpassed, as we said earlier, the 2024 presidential election in Lucas County. This is just the Lucas County voter turnout numbers. Last May 2025, we had important ballot issues on the ballot in Lucas County last year. Only 9.4% of the county showed up. There was for example, a ballot issue for Metro Parks Toledo that asked voters, do you want to increase your taxes, essentially, to pay more to support Metro Parks Toledo? And in that countywide ballot initiative, since there were only 9% of the electorate that came out to vote, it was about 50-50 split, meaning about 5% of Lucas County decided what happens for 100% of Lucas County homeowners. So that's why making your voice heard in these elections, we say, is important, because of situations like that, where a few people can hold a lot of power in these elections. But if everyone comes out, maybe you get closer to a majority feeling, a majority decision that everybody is on board with. And maybe that you extrapolate that out, and 52% of voters, if everybody shows up, still support that Metro Parks ballot request. But you look at a place like Otsego or Springfield or Sylvania, if enough people can get together in an off-year election, or in an election that's basically not a presidential election year where you'll get 60, 70, 75% turnout, can we convince enough people to go out and vote and support us? And that happens a lot in these off-year elections, is ballot issues, tax requests, when they know the engaged voters are going to be paying attention, and when they know that they can drum up enough support in their own community, whether it be a school or a Parks and Rec issue, to come out and support them at the ballot. So we see a lot of ballot issues in these primary elections, and they're all important. That is the story. That is, I guess, the message that we're looking for here. And this year's voter turnout is much stronger than that one that we saw in May 2025, when only 9.4% of Lucas County voters showed up to the polls, and then 4 years, or 2024, 2 years ago, during the presidential election year, when we had about 17.5% or so turnout in Lucas County. This year, we're going to be around 20% voter turnout in Lucas County. Let's get back over to elections results, as some of these are coming in greater volumes. Derek Marin now with a 4,400 and change vote lead over Josh Williams. Where did those new votes come from? Let's go to the map. Good lead for Derek Marin out in Henry and Fulton counties, the only counties where he has at least 50% of the vote. Where 5 candidates are involved, it makes it difficult for somebody to get more than 50% of the vote, but that is what has happened in Fulton and Henry counties for Derek Marin. Paulding County is going to Josh Williams with 70% of the vote in. Still only 10% of the vote for Lucas County is updated on this page that was just refreshed about 2 minutes ago. 800 vote lead for Derek Marin over Madison Sheehan in Erie County. Ottawa County, Sheehan's home county, he has a 3 percentage point lead. Ottawa County is where Madison Sheehan is at least making up ground. She is an Ottawa County native, so that's her home turf. Lucas County is Marin's home turf. It is also the home of Josh Williams, who looks to make up ground there once more votes come in. And Lucas County's the big X factor there. There were just, in this entire region in Northwest Ohio, in this congressional district, no matter how many more counties, rural counties were added into it, barring adding Lake County back in or stretching all the way to Cleveland again like it was when it was Snake on the Lake, we are going to add more and more rural counties to make up the loss of the Snake on the Lake areas when it was a Democratic stronghold that got taken out of this district. More votes just came in Fulton County. That's what refreshed, if you saw the numbers jump behind me. 11,000 votes for Derek Marin now total. Josh Williams with 6,900 votes, almost 6,800. That is the current numbers from across Northwest Ohio in the 9th Congressional District. And if things don't start changing quickly, Derek Marin will be the presumptive Republican nominee here momentarily. Again, Lucas County, the big X factor, have to wait on the 90% of the votes that will come from here. 47% of the initial vote has gone to Derek Marin in the 9th Congressional District. Let's continue looking out to other races. This 1st Congressional District is the other one that we're watching. 51.1% of the vote going to Craig Riedel so far, 48.9% to Jim Hoops. Hancock County is one that has perhaps the most amount of votes in this district out of any of the counties total that will come in tonight. And in the biggest county, it is Craig Riedel with 93% reporting 58% of the vote. So Riedel builds a healthy lead in Hancock County. That allows him to have a 700 vote cushion right now in the entirety when all of the other counties are added in. Hoops is leading in Henry, his home county, Fulton County, and Williams County, along with Paulding County. But it is Craig Riedel who is winning in a couple of the counties where there are more votes to be had. Van Wert County, where he has 63% of the vote, and all of the vote is in. There's no more votes coming from Van Wert County. We're starting to get numbers now from Putnam County, and it's a little closer there than it is in Van Wert County, but it's still one where Riedel is leading. Those are a couple of the closer ones that we're following. That treasurer primary, still very close, but still too close to call. I would stray from saying very close anymore. Now more votes just came in. About 45% of the vote is in this. Now with that fresh vote refresh that we just had, 227,000, 195,000. It's looking like it's going to be a tougher climb for Christina Rogner now to overtake Jay Edwards with almost half of the vote in. Jay Edwards, endorsed by Vice President Vance and Senator Bernie Moreno. Christina Rogner, the state senator, endorsed by Vivek Ramaswamy. Really the only other statewide primary that was going to be interesting tonight besides the Supreme Court primary, which we might not get a race call for while we are talking together tonight. If you missed us earlier, Democrat Sherrod Brown won his primary election easily, getting 90% of the vote. He will face Senator John Husted later in November. Winner will serve the rest of J.D. Vance's initial 6-year Senate term for 2 years. Vivek Ramaswamy, the Republican, fending off Casey Putsch. Heather Hill, you see 0 votes here because any vote that went for her did not count. Her running mate dropped out at the last minute. Some contention in that camp. They went to the Supreme Court to try and keep Heather Hill on the ballot. That did not work. So the only primary opponent really for Vivek Ramaswamy was Casey Putsch, car enthusiast from Northwest Ohio. Putsch not going to get it done tonight. 18% of the vote, no, 17% of the vote now, as the number just refreshed to get him to 80,000 votes on this evening. But it will be Vivek Ramaswamy and Dr. Amy Acton going head-to-head in November. A couple of other race calls have been made tonight. Robert Sprague will face off against Allison Russo in the Secretary of State general election. The Attorney General primary goes to John Kulowitz. He will face Auditor Keith Faber, who will try to get into the Attorney General's office. Toledo Zoo levy, more numbers are in from Lucas County. 61% of the county is going to support the Lucas County Zoo levy that will drop your tax bill and decrease the reliance on taxpayers from the Toledo Zoo. Lucas County 911 systems also on track to have a successful election night this evening. Still need some more numbers in from Sylvania and Springfield schools, but both right now are behind as they look to get some more money from their taxpayers. Otsego schools, Evergreen local schools trying to get some income tax dollars as well. In the case of Evergreen, this is a renewal. This is not new money. This is on track to pass if this holds. 52%, 47%, little closer than Evergreen administrators might like, but it is still a better place to be than where maybe Sylvania schools is. This Northwest Wood County Ambulance District levy, also, this is a new money request. This is for 24-hour ambulance service to continue staffing it. That on track to pass if the numbers hold. Watching Swanton Parks and Rec levy. They want some additional tax money from Swanton voters to fund Parks and Recreation in Swanton. 60-39, the vote breakdown right now for that tax levy. Richfield Township Fire levy is so far in the lead. Lake Township Road levy is also being supported. So of all of these tax issues, as with all the talk of fatigue on paying property taxes and seeing rising property tax values, it will be one of the biggest, if not the biggest issue in the campaign of the race for governor and perhaps Senate too, but this is a state and a local issue of property taxes. That will be one of the big talking points here moving forward to November, is that they're too high. We will see if we end up getting a ballot initiative qualifying for 2026's November election that asks Ohio voters, should we get rid of property taxes altogether? Local officials warn of dire consequences by losing billions of dollars in funding. But those on the other side say something needs done about property taxes. They have gotten too high, property values soared, and we are paying far too much, especially for seniors. Property taxes could be on the November ballot. They still have until July to collect all of their signatures. When we'll find out if they will. Of all these tax issues tonight, though, the only ones that appear to be either struggling or really close are two of the schools asking for new money from voters. As the state share of school funding goes down, local schools are going to ballots more often, asking for more money. Sylvania schools More numbers just came in, 58% against the school levy in Sylvania, 53% against the school levy in Springfield. 911 levy is also on the ballot here in Lucas County. I'm going to bring Sean Hegarty back into the conversation. He was explaining to us the stakes of all of these school levies earlier. He filed this report in the lead up to the election about the 911 system and the tax increase that Lucas County is asking for from you.
You want dispatchers like this taking your call in an emergency when you dial 911. Lucas County is looking for extra money to upgrade the infrastructure to make it all happen.
We're really want to take this opportunity to make sure that we don't have any missed opportunities for our infrastructure in Lucas County.
Lucas County Commissioners approved a 0.8 mil levy for the May ballot. The rate was 0.7 mils. Lucas County Sheriff Mike DeVar wanted it to stay there, but the commissioners decided to go with the increase.
Down the road, this infrastructure is going to have to be taken care of. Why aren't we doing it up here at the front end of it when you know that, down the road prices are going to be more?
Commissioner Lisa Sobecki telling the I-Team Tuesday that if the county stayed at the current millage, that they would not be able to do the upgrades. Upgrades they believe keep the system running. County leaders say this move has nothing to do with dispatch consolidation in the last few years, when dispatch left individual communities and came under one roof. This is, they say, about keeping the equipment going.
This is the infrastructure. This is the heart, if you think about it, for 911 services.
Sean Hegarty, 13 Action News.
So we'll see where that ends up falling once the night is all said and done. Right now, 911 levy is looking like it's on track to pass. I got some more numbers coming in from Lucas County, where we have not had a lot of numbers so far tonight. Still south of, I think, 10% reporting for Lucas County. Our crews are going to plug them in behind the scenes. I wonder if any of these have the Lucas County data. Okay, so AP does so far. At last check, it was a small percentage of the overall vote had been turned in so far from Lucas County. Here's my update as of this hour. In the 9th Congressional District specifically, because this is the one that will likely determine who ends up winning this primary election. Derek Marin with a 700 almost vote lead over Josh Williams in Lucas County. This is home for both of them. So 16% of the votes so far in this contest. And if it ends up going Derek Marin's way, then we will have Derek Marin facing off against Marcy Kaptur once again in 2026, as Kaptur looks to get a 23rd term in Congress. Lucas County Board of Elections tracking the election results for us. I'm going to go to their website specifically here for us to look a little bit deeper at some of the data that they have posted. In the video you're seeing here from Derek Marin's campaign this year, he did not get endorsed by Donald Trump for this election, but he did in 2024. And that is what he had been touting, something that no other candidate in that race could, that they had previously been endorsed by President Trump. And I want to note, too, that we tried to host a primary debate with the 5 candidates in Ohio's 9th Congressional District. As a refresher, here are the leading 4 on your screen. 3 of the 5 candidates agreed initially to do the debate. Madison Sheehan's camp said we will if Marin's team will. Marin's people ultimately decided they did not want to debate, and therefore we did not have a debate. But we did ask the candidates to host a debate for this campaign before early voting got started, and it did not materialize. And who knows where this may have gone with a little bit more voter information out there, but voters had plenty of information to make their decision in this. And that was interesting. Anthony Campbell just jumped up to 4th place, leapfrogging Aaliyah Nadeem there. Anthony Campbell, newcomer to politics, works in healthcare sales. Leah Nadeem, Air Force Lieutenant Colonel. Really, this is a 3-way race, and at this point, Derek Marin with a 6,300 and change vote lead over Josh Williams. A lot is going to happen for Williams to make up ground here and defeat Marin tonight. Madison Sheehan in third place, even farther behind Derek Marin, the former ICE Deputy Director, Madison Sheehan. Sandusky County results are completely in this evening. Where else are we getting results from? I just want to check a couple of other data sources that I have. So Sandusky County is the first that we have that's completely in, at least for us. We are also told Fulton County is done. I did know that. The Archbold local schools ballot issue passes 773 to 719. Another close school election ballot issue. That wasn't one that I had on my touch board, but we do have that if you're looking for this election or any other. Actually, please stand by. I believe we're about to have some breaking news here in Ohio's 9th Congressional District. As soon as we get this confirmed, I don't want to jump the gun on this, but there it is. You see the gold check mark here. We can project that Derek Marin will be the representative, the Republican nominee in Ohio's 9th Congressional District, and will move on to challenge Marcy Kaptur once again. A rematch is set for 2026 in the fall. It'll be Derek Marin versus Marcy Kaptur. The Associated Press, with that extra vote batch that just came in from Lucas County, pads Marin's lead even more, and it will see him coming out in first place. 43% of the vote so far on this evening. Josh Williams in second, 26%, for a 17-point margin, difficult to make up at this hour of the evening. The race call coming in from the Associated Press just after 9:30 p.m. on election night, a little more than 2 hours after polls close. We see that gold check mark go up for Derek Marin. So that is breaking news in Ohio's 9th Congressional District on this election night. The other massive race that we were following this evening that will have national implications, we will see once again Marin versus Kaptur, Part 2, coming up in 2026. As a reminder, in 2024, Derek Marin and Marcy Kaptur were on the ballot, as was Libertarian Tom Pruss. I'm going to come back and talk about the Libertarians in just a second. Marcy Kaptur, 48.3% of the vote. Derek Marin, 47.6% of the vote. It was the closest re-election bid of Marcy Kaptur's career. And now the district is drawn to make it even more likely that Republicans can win, adding tens of thousands, maybe not tens of thousands, thousands of Republican voters across some rural western Ohio counties into the 9th District this year. Voters that Marin will have to try and court to defeat Kaptur this year. One of the X factors in last year's election was Tom Pruss, the Libertarian, who got, as you can see, 4.1% of the vote, 15,000 and change people casting their ballots for the Libertarian in that contest. How would that vote have changed if there were only two candidates and those 15,000 voters had to make another choice? We will never know, and the experts can speculate all day long, but there were three things would happen with those 15,000 votes. They would leave this blank. They could stay the same. We could have the same ultimate outcome, or we pick a different winner in this race. And that could happen again this year, where a Libertarian candidate is in this race and ends up taking 2, 3, 4, 5% of the vote, maybe even more, and takes that vote away from one candidate or the other. There is a Libertarian in this election coming up in November. It will be David Geddert, who is more likely known to you as Sugar Vermonte, a drag queen in Toledo who's running as a Libertarian, was has been featured on national TV shows before. I think it was the Food Network had a food truck show, and Sugar Vermonte brought the Maybe Cheese Born With It food truck onto that show and was competing and trying to make a name for himself as a food truck owner, and did fairly well on the show. Is a well-known drag queen in town, running as a Libertarian, and will be on the ballot once again in November. Libertarians are also fielding a candidate in the race for U.S. Senate. 2, 3, 4, 5 percentage points in that race could make all the difference. So pay attention to the Libertarian candidates this year is what I'm telling you. You do also, maybe there is a chance that a Libertarian comes and wins one of these general elections. We haven't seen that happen in recent history in Ohio, but it could. A third-party candidate comes along and either plays spoiler, plays the underdog, and wins. Don't write the Libertarian Party off for November in terms of the impact that they could have, either winning a race or taking votes away from one candidate or another and influencing the outcome of an election. Pay attention to that. I'm still paying attention to this, what I think is one of the more intriguing races of the night. This is one of the few now that are still outstanding as we wait for more numbers to come in from Lucas County. Fulton County is completely reporting, so that is good. About 10:20, we are told Derek Marin will be speaking from the Lucas County Republican Party headquarters and will be giving his victory speech. As soon as he goes on to talk, we'll carry that for you. 10 o'clock is our cutoff time. At 10 o'clock, we're going to have to head out and do some TV work, and we will keep the stream going in some fashion. I might just have to pause and talk on TV and do some TV hits. So maybe we'll give you a little bit of behind-the-scenes look, or we'll figure out something on the stream for 10:20. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, you're safe. You're good to go. Stay there. If you are watching on our apps, we will, after 10 o'clock to continue election coverage, switch over to what I think is labeled as our weather stream. Let me take you up onto our website. You'll see right here is where I'm yapping. Down on the side, this will look a little bit different, but it serves a similar function on your app, on your Fire TV, Roku, or whatever. Weather and live events. We can go in and interrupt our weather channel, which, by the way, we have a 24/7 streaming weather channel with live updates for you on the weather front. That's where you'll find us after 10 p.m. with some more results. But the biggest result that just came in on our website that we just brought you there live, Derek Marin, the projected winner in Ohio's 9th District Republican primary. Before that happened, before we ended up getting that race call, I was about to look at the Archbold Schools levy, a renewal for current expenses, so not a new tax request, but this was very close. 773 for this tax, 719 against it. So another example of voters being maybe hesitant to support any tax requests, including a renewal from the school district. Schools have had a harder time than some other groups, like libraries, at winning at the ballot in recent years. Libraries have overwhelmingly won, whether it's been bond issues or tax levies across the state of Ohio over the past few elections. Schools have had a little bit of a harder time. Some other close elections, as we keep watching 13abc.com and a lot of these other hyper-local races. Union Township has a bond issue to build a new township garage, and this is separated by 3 votes at this hour. These are the ones I love. In Hancock County, 3 votes are deciding this one at this hour, and that is 3 votes. That's one household. That's one slice of a friend group. Every vote matters in these elections. Union Township bond issue, 3-vote lead for it right now. So if you have one family in Hancock County, in Union Township, that doesn't want to issue bonds to pay for a new township garage. They could have gone out and voted against this tonight. They didn't. Therefore, we're not tied. It's 200 to 197. More votes to come in, of course. Bluffton Public Library wanting an additional $1 million tax levy. 9-8 is the vote right now in Bluffton. 9-8. I'll keep giving you examples. I'll keep finding them because they keep showing up in every election. There are single-digit vote margins in some of these hyper-local races. Sure, when you get thousands of votes in, it's a little bit of a different story. But in these hyper-local races, every vote matters. Otsego, very close still. More numbers are coming in here. I didn't have a lot of numbers for Otsego local schools earlier. I do now. And it's a 5-vote difference between this income tax request failing and passing. This was not new this was not a renewal. This is new money. So this is asking for a 0.25% income tax, new money for Otsego, where they have struggled at the ballot in the past. Otsego has seen levies fail in 2023 and 2024. Income tax, not a property tax, generate about $1.1 million annually. That's what's at stake for Otsego local schools. 5 votes between winning and losing at this hour. Still many votes to go between Lucas County, Wood County, and Henry County, all making up the Otsego local school district voting block. Evergreen local schools, also on the ballot. This is a tax renewal in this case. 534 votes for it, 499 against it. That's another close one tonight. All of Fulton County's numbers are in, and Lucas County only has like 10% at last check. So Lucas County is where we need to make up a lot of ground and where a lot of these outstanding votes will come from for some of these races that include multiple counties, like Ohio's 9th Congressional District, or some of these other school levies where you have a district that is that overlaps in multiple counties. Let's go on to the actual Lucas County Board of Elections website and show you what we're seeing behind the scenes here. Voter turnout. This is different than the number that I had earlier for a different reason. They have a separate widget for voter turnout. Here it is. This is where I get that 19%, 19.69% voter turnout in Lucas County thus far. Here's who's casting a ballot too. We can see way more Democrats than Republicans as expected coming out to cast ballots in Lucas County. But the overall voter turnout here, stronger than it was for the 2024 presidential election and much stronger than last year's 9.5% voter turnout. So far, this is just the votes cast. 8.6% precincts reporting so far for Lucas County. Still a long way to go. Other counties out there, Fulton, Erie, we just got word is all complete. But in Lucas County, it's 8.6%. So to our Lucas County viewers, you'll have to wait a little bit longer for some more substantive results. Hopefully it wouldn't be too much longer, as we've now gone into, or we crossed over into hour 3 of vote counting and tabulating on this evening. You're seeing some other races here that are not contested that might not be on our website or on this broadcast on your screen. So if you are looking for any races that we haven't talked about tonight that you haven't seen at the bottom of the ticker at the screen, head over to 13abc.com. We have many more listed there to get all of the uncontested races. If you're thinking, somebody represents me in the Ohio House of Representatives and you haven't talked about them tonight, or for example, they might be running unopposed. And if that's the case, we're touching on them for this primary election because there are other contested races that we do have to talk about. They are automatically moving on to November. So if you're looking for any of those, head to your local County Board of Elections website and they will have all of those results for you there. Some more numbers coming in from Wood County, which is not completely reporting yet. 67% of voters supporting that ambulance authority levy request. Swanton Parks and Rec, 60% for that one. Richfield Township Fire, Lake Township Roads also have advantages this evening. Toledo Zoo, a countywide issue. That on track to pass. Lucas County 911 levy also on track to pass with very slim percentage of the votes in. If you extrapolate that, those would be on track to pass in that way. 24 precincts are fully reporting of the 280 in Lucas County. I wonder if this website gives us all of them. I'll show you what I'm clicking around on. Let's look at the precincts that are reporting to figure out where the numbers are in here in Lucas County. Reporting. I have 2 Oregon precincts. Make that 3, 4, 5. Good job, Oregon. I have a couple of Toledo precincts. And that's it. That's about it. Not a lot of precincts reporting in Lucas County tonight. Fully reporting. A lot of these might have partial results in, but fully reporting, we only have 24 of the 28 precincts in Lucas County. So if you're wondering where the outstanding vote is, that's where. We have 4.7% is what this is showing in terms of turnout. So they've counted enough votes to match 4.7% of the turnout. We had, it was 19.69%. So they have a nice way to go, about 15% more percentage points we need to go to close that gap. Let's go. Let's get those numbers in. About 10 minutes left here on this continuous stream before we break for Action News at 10 o'clock on CW13 with Gerald Harris. We will let you know some of the results as we go throughout that newscast. And if you are watching again on our app or our website or whether it's Fire TV, Roku, those streaming apps on your TV, switch it on over to the 24/7 weather stream to see some more results, at least for the next hour or so, hour and a half or so. And if you're watching here on YouTube or Facebook, you can keep it here. We won't be talking as much. I won't be talking as much to the delight, I'm sure, of everybody who's been listening. But we'll have to pause and do some TV hits, and I'll let you know when those are happening. And you'll maybe get a little bit of a peek behind the corner or the curtain because you've been so patient with us tonight. Ohio Supreme Court and that GOP primary for what is currently Justice Jennifer Bruner's seat. This one is another one that could come down to the wire tonight. One that we don't have results for. Let me get that on the right shot. Don't have complete results for and might not at the end of the night if there's only a 13,000 vote difference between the leading candidates. But Colleen O'Donnell would be the one to challenge Jennifer Bruner if this ends up holding. And I think this has been pretty much our top 3 all night. So we might not get a race call in this tonight, but there's still a chance that we can. Historically, when do we start getting election results and numbers and all of that jazz final in Ohio? Here it is from 2024. We had our first race calls in Ohio at 7:36, 6 minutes after the polls closed. The first bit of data that came in gave us our first Associated Press race calls in 2024. 90% of the vote had been reported by 10:19 at night. By 10:19 for the presidential election, in the primary, I should say, in the presidential primary election in 2024, 90% of the vote was in by 10:19 p.m. Statewide, we have 67% of the vote in currently at this hour. And all of our big counties have reported some good amount of votes, but they're still lagging behind. Hamilton County, 36% of the vote in. Cuyahoga County, 27% of the vote in. Lucas County, 14% of the vote in. So Lucas County is trailing everybody else practically in the state in terms of percent of the vote counted. But the other larger counties, there is still a good amount of vote outstanding between Hamilton County, Franklin County, where about half the vote is in, and Cuyahoga County, where only about a quarter of the vote is in. So Lucas County still 14%. Get the numbers up, but that's where the vote is outstanding from. The last vote update in that 2024 presidential primary election, by the way, came in at about 1:28 a.m. when we had 99% of the votes counted. So we hit 90% about 20 after 10 2 years ago, and we're sitting at about 2/3 right now. So still a little bit of ways to go before we end up hitting that 90% of the vote is in marker, and we know for sure which way a lot of these races are going to fall once all is said and done. Let me get a check on a couple of the other counties that we are following tonight. Fulton County completely in. Erie County completely in. Henry County 98% of the way in. So we have a lot of Northwest Ohio counties that are done counting votes, Defiance being one of them. I want to see how Defiance ended up falling for Craig Riedel in that first Senate district that we keep watching. Craig Riedel gets 2,200 votes in Defiance County to Jim Hoops' 1,900. 500 votes separate Riedel and Hoops right now. Where are the outstanding votes? Where are the missing votes? There aren't a ton out there, but they do exist. Hardin County and Williams County still have a ways to go. They're about, let's see, Hardin County is 51% of the way fully reported. Williams County has 68% of the vote in. And this is a county where Hoops is winning. Hardin County is one where Riedel is winning. Extrapolate both of those, and we get a really tight, maybe 51-49% victory if that extrapolates proportionally. If not, then Hoops could end up making a comeback here, or Riedel could end up padding his lead. So there are still votes outstanding in that first Senate district. Still votes outstanding, again, as we've said, 69% of the votes now, more than 2/3 in the state of Ohio. It was 67% just a moment ago. But that has changed, and the lead has not shrunk for Jay Edwards, who could be on his way to securing the Republican Party nomination for treasurer tonight. This race is decided. Derek Marin will win Ohio's 9th Congressional District primary election. Madison Sheehan wins one county, 99% of the vote in Ottawa County. Her home county votes for her. Paulding County, 98% of the votes are in out west. 98% of the votes went to Josh Williams. Those are the two counties that Derek Marin did not carry tonight as it currently stands, with still a lot of votes outstanding in Lucas County, 84% of the vote outstanding in Lucas County. But Marin has won every one of these counties in Northwest Ohio in the 9th District, except for Ottawa County, Madison Sheehan's home, and Paulding County to the west. I'm going to wind down this live stream and this portion of tonight's programming as we get ready for Action News at 10 o'clock. Again, if you're joining us on YouTube, Facebook, we'll put up some live results and have those scrolling for you, and you might end up seeing some of our behind-the-scenes talk for TV. If you are on 13abc.com, if you're on our live stream, if you are watching this on your smart TV, go ahead and flip over to the 24/7 weather stream. That's where this is going to be for the remainder of the night. If you're watching on the primary feed on our apps, you'll see Action News at 10, and yours truly here shortly talking about whatever it is they want to talk about here on this evening as we continue to watch the election results come in. It's been a pleasure having you with us here for the past 2.5 hours nonstop here on election night 2026 and this primary election night, setting the stage for November in all of these races. I'll see you on TV at 10 o'clock. Hi everybody, if you are still watching on the stream, we appreciate you. We're clearing off the graphics and getting ready to do a hit on TV. So they are asking me for this hit to talk about the Ohio 9th Congressional District race and the gubernatorial primaries. Those are the races that we're going to be talking about here with Gerald Harris on Action News at 10 o'clock. So bear with me here for a couple of moments while I talk to my producer and while I talk to Gerald. This is TV Met. No one's seeing this except for you guys who are watching on the stream. On Facebook or YouTube, we appreciate having you all with us tonight. They're going to toss to me here momentarily and we'll run through just some of the results. So this will also be maybe a good catch up for those of you at home who've been watching tonight. Maybe you're just tuning in. So I'm going to go quiet for a second as they get ready to toss to me. Hello, Gerald. It will be a rematch in 2026 fall election between Derek Marin and Marcy Kaptur. Marin coming away tonight with 43% of the votes. Still some votes outstanding, especially in Lucas County. But the lead right now, almost 7,000 votes between him and the second place candidate in this contest, State Representative Josh Williams, who had a lot of support from various elected officials across the area. A current state lawmaker had a lot of those endorsements. Marin is the one who ran last year, had that name ID, and we are expecting to hear from him within the next half hour or so. We'll carry that live on our live stream as soon as he does from Lucas County GOP headquarters. So Derek Marin carrying every county in this race except for Paulding County, which Josh Williams won, and Ottawa County, which is home to former Deputy ICE Director Madison Sheehan. Derek Marin will be the one moving on in November. A couple of other races to touch on really briefly. Vivek Ramaswamy secures the GOP nomination for governor. He will face former Health Department Director Amy Acton in November. Tight primary contest between Vance-endorsed Jay Edwards and Ramaswamy-endorsed Christina Rogner. Too close to call, but Edwards with the lead there. We'll keep our eyes on these. Okay, so we are clear from TV. We are clear from TV now. While we were doing that, I wondered if there was some music playing in the background, and if that was the case, apologize to those of you who were listening to that on the back end. But we come back here to the stream to talk more results as we reset a little bit here. Wonder what we are looking at turnout-wise in Lucas County or result-wise here on their website. I don't know why we only have 24 precincts still fully reporting. And the newsroom hasn't had any updates on a potential reason why we only have 24 precincts fully reporting here. But let me get back into the stream 2 for our friends who are watching on the app. 24 precincts fully reporting in Lucas County. We might have to wait until late into the night, early into the morning until we get some better results and some better numbers. I think there were just some more that were just refreshed there. Again, Ohio does a great job with reporting election results, just objectively. Other states, a lot of it has to do with the laws and when they can start processing absentee ballots, and the fact that it's been that way for years, where people can start opening the envelopes, they can start preparing them ahead of time. Once the ballots arrive, they don't have to wait until the polls close at 7:30 or 8 o'clock, depending on their state, to start processing the early votes. So because Ohio does that, we're able to get quicker results. And in a lot of counties, we have final results at this hour. We do not in Lucas County, the biggest county in Northwest Ohio, in the 9th Congressional District, and our viewing area. So wish we had better information to give you at this hour, but sometimes it happens. And we, by the way, are not like, let's hurry up and get the numbers out. Like, selfishly, I want to have better numbers for you because you're taking time out of your day to watch this, but whatever we tell you isn't the final result. Yeah, we'll put gold check marks beside races that the Associated Press has called as being final, but there are still outstanding military ballots. There are votes that arrived at polling locations at 7:29 p.m. before the deadline. Those still have to be counted. These are the unofficial results. We project the winners out. The results will be what they will be by the end of the night. Just wish they had them in a little bit sooner. But accuracy matters more than news media getting some results quickly. It does help when you get quicker results for confidence in elections we've seen amongst the electorate. And that is what the polling shows. That is what elections officials have said in previous elections. Look at the states where there were the most problems in 2020 in terms of getting quick results. It was Pennsylvania, it was Arizona, it was states where you couldn't start processing absentee ballots early, and it took days, weeks to count all of the ballots. And that led to a lot of questions from people who were watching skeptically. And one way you can do away with that is with some quick results. You might argue that quick results can have an opposite effect, can make people think that the results are rigged because why do they have so many votes in? But the elections officials who do this repeatedly, day in and day out, year in, year out, election year in, election year out, dedicate a lot of their time and their lives to this, and we appreciate them for getting it right. And no matter how long it takes in some cases, we can trust that it'll be the right results, even though 24% or 24 precincts are fully reporting out of the 280 in Lucas County. So what else is unresolved that we need to touch on at this hour? Still only a couple of races that don't have gold check marks, the Supreme Court contest being one of them. This one could get decided maybe sooner rather than later. What percentage of the vote do we have statewide now? 71% of the vote statewide. I think this one will actually be the next one. Jay Edwards and Christina Rogner in that treasurer primary that we're watching. This could actually be the first one that ends up going of the remaining races that we have, just because of the lead that J.D. Vance pick for this race has right now, 336,000 votes. J.D. Vance was back in Ohio earlier today voting before he got back on Air Force Two and went to a political rally. J.D. Vance coming out and becoming the vice president gave us what we have tonight, which is a U.S. Senate election. If J.D. Vance had not become vice president, he would still be in the Senate, and we would not have a Senate election tonight or in November. But he did win, and because of that, John Husted ended up landing in the United States Senate. He will face Sherrod Brown in November because, yes, he was appointed to the seat by the governor. It was open. The Constitution says he still has to earn it. He still has to get your vote in order to remain in the Senate. So in the interim, we need to have a senator. There's not enough time to do an election. The Constitution says the next even year that there's an election, you have to do it, and that is what is happening right now. And that's why John Husted is on the ballot, why it'll only be for 2 years in the seat if he ends up winning again in November. But the last time you had Sherrod Brown on a ballot in Ohio, Sherrod Brown did not win. The Republican Bernie Moreno did. And what we had back in 2024 when Brown was on the ballot was the most expensive election in U.S. history that wasn't a presidential race. So you take every single U.S. Senate, every single House race, every single governor election that has ever been held in the United States of America, none of them garnered more spending than the contest between Sherrod Brown and Bernie Moreno in 2022. It is possible that this race is just as expensive, maybe more expensive, maybe less. There are other seats in the country where Democrats are trying to flip. This is one of them. Democrats see this as a pickup opportunity. The early polling in this race, take it for what it's worth, shows Sherrod Brown trailing in this to John Husted. The early polling, and some of the early polls have been from Bowling Green State University, shows Vivek Ramaswamy and Amy Acton within the margin of error. So the early polling pretty consistently shows governor race kind of a toss-up. It is a toss-up, maybe leans Republican. In the race for, sorry, I was getting a couple more details of information. Yes. Okay, so Derek Marin will be speaking within the next 10 minutes, hopefully. All of Wood County is also in. Ottawa County also fully reporting. So more and more counties are getting fully reported. Lucas County is not one of them. Lucas County is up to 27.9% though. That's good. That is an improvement from where we were a couple of moments ago with less than 10% of the vote. What was the thought I was just having so we can wrap it up? It doesn't matter. I was just talking anyways. You don't need that. Here is the latest numbers from Lucas County. 78 fully reporting precincts on this evening, 280 total. So we still have 202 precincts to go. But 27.9% is better than the less than 10% we had a few moments ago. And because of that, we should have some more numbers in on some of these other races that we're following, including the zoo levy. The zoo levy, 58. I just want to make sure these numbers match up, and I think they do. So here, let me pull up the big board for us and show you some of the other tax issues in Lucas County that we're waiting numbers for. Toledo Zoo, 58% voting to lower taxes, ultimately is what this vote is. 911 levy, a little bit tighter than what we were looking at earlier, but still healthy advantage for the Lucas County 911 levy. Sylvania schools. School administrators didn't get any help with the newest batch of votes. 61% of voters now in Sylvania voting against that levy request. It's still 53-46 in Springfield. This is going to, I don't know where all the outstanding votes are, but this is going to be a lot for Sylvania to overcome in order to get this to pass. Precincts fully reporting. Let's look at this list. How many of them are fully reporting? 78 are fully in. Good amount of them are in Toledo. As we keep going, Sylvania Township. So a lot of the vote is in Sylvania. Have a couple of township precincts that are not reporting. There are still a handful of city precincts not reporting. So there is outstanding vote in Sylvania is the point of that exercise. But it's got to be sizable comeback for this result to change. I don't know that there are that many votes out there that are going to go by way of the tax levy for Sylvania. So that right now could be on track to failing. Springfield's don't have any Springfield precincts fully reporting right now. So still too close to call, still too early to tell there. Otsego local schools, this income tax request, a 5-vote margin for Otsego local schools, a 5-vote margin. Wood County is fully reporting. I don't know about, this is one of those overlapping counties where we have multiple counties involved. in the school district. The school district overlaps multiple counties. So Lucas, Wood, Henry County have votes that contribute to the Otsego question. 5 votes is all that separates the district getting about $1 million in income tax revenue per year. So there are literally millions of dollars on the line tonight. Sylvania's school levy failing, school leaders have told us, and Sean kind of laid out the stakes a little bit in his story earlier. If this ends up passing, it would get them $18.28 million annually. It would cost homeowners about $277 per $100,000 assessed value. So if your home costs $200,000, double that. If your home is a $300,000 home in Sylvania, you would be paying, let me do some math, $28, $277 per year, or per 100,000. Okay. Your tax bill would go up $831 a year if your home is valued at $300,000. I like the $200,000 to $300,000 marker a little bit better, even a $250,000 home, but they measure this in $100,000 home value. So taxes would go up in Sylvania if this ends up passing, $18 million annually for the school district. If it fails, on the other side, district says it would likely go back to the ballot in November, so they will try again like we see districts do all the time. You fail and then you try again. Possible cuts to administrative positions, electives, or higher fees. There are some residents on fixed incomes who have been pushing back on this, and there was a coordinated no campaign for against the school levies in Sylvania. So 61% coming out and saying no to that tax request. And the turnout in Sylvania was strong in this election, especially for a primary. Let's go by precinct here, and I'll show you up. This is the back end of the Lucas County Board of Elections website. Look at some of these percentages in all of these precincts. This is Sylvania, then we get into Sylvania Township. You're seeing 33%, 33%, 35%, 34%, getting at least a third of voters in your precincts to show up for a primary election. That is a healthy turnout. You would love to see 100% turnout and see everybody weigh in, but that's just not the reality of these primary elections. But there aren't low turnout counties or precincts. 13% maybe is the lowest. Remember, last March, in the March 2025 primary, 9% of voters showed up in Lucas County. In this election, it's been 19.69% turnout. Nearly every precinct in Sylvania Township, is above that 19.9% Lucas County average. There's one that's below. There's a second, and I think there was a third. I count 3 really quickly. I count 3 precincts that are below 20% turnout. Turnout was healthy in Sylvania. Healthier than the county average. County average, you say, was 20% turnout. You're seeing 35% turnout at some precincts. 37% is the highest I've seen in Sylvania. So you don't come close to that with any other municipality or area if you just look at the precinct list, because you can go and look very specifically, where did people turn out to vote? Was it Maumee? Was it Monclova? Was it Oregon? Was it Springfield? Springfield comes closer to Sylvania, but there are still some precincts in Springfield Township, Holland, that didn't have the turnout that Sylvania did. These school levies drew people to the polls, and I think that part is clear tonight. And in Sylvania, the people who came out, the majority of them so far have said no to this first new money request in Sylvania in nearly a decade. As the state share of funding is down, they say they need more from local taxpayers, and at least for now, they won't get it. We'll see if Sylvania ends up back on the ballot come November. No new numbers affecting the Springfield or the Otsego numbers. We just went over the zoo and the 911 levies on this list. Do we have a call yet in that state treasurer primary? We do not. Do we have a race call in that Senate District 1 primary? We do not. Still outstanding votes. The numbers haven't changed in this one since our last check. Those are two that we continue to monitor here during this evening. Still waiting for Derek Marin to show up and give his victory speech this evening. Still waiting on a picture from Derek Marin's event. Also, as soon as I get a live picture, I will pass that along to you. But right now, as of 10:21, I do not have a shot at this moment. We're expecting to hear them at 10:20, and we do have a crew over there. As soon as we hear from them, bring that up full for you. Thanks to everybody who's tuned in tonight to continue to watch all of these results. Sorry if we haven't talked about every single result in Northwest Ohio to this point. If you are looking for races that we haven't touched on yet, head to 13abc.com. I'll walk you through it from the beginning. Top of the page here. You can hit more races. These are some of the ones that we're spotlighting, but if you hit full results, that gives you everything. We are following hundreds of races tonight with our newsroom fueled with pizza and caffeine, trying to stay on top of all these races across the 13ABC viewing area. Refreshed every 2 minutes on this page. So you don't want to scroll. You can hit Control F on your keyboard, or there's a search function up here. So if you're in Hancock County and you want to search, let's see, there was a bond issue in Union Township. I searched the word bond and look what shows up. The Union Township bond issue, 3 votes separated, winning and losing there. So a lot of good resources here on our website. If you want to get even more hyperlocal, you don't see maybe a non-contested race, for example, because we're not covering the non-contested races where it's just you, yourself, and you on the ballot and don't have a primary opponent. We are not including those in our list of results, the lengthy list of results. And there are gold check marks beside a lot of them tonight that we're projecting out as winners or that are final. So a lot of these in Sandusky County, for example, 911 renewal levy passes pretty easily against the tax levy. Village of Woodville rejecting a renewal levy for current expenses. As of now, still outstanding votes at 11 vote margin. Things could change. The gold check mark for a lot of these local races doesn't mean that these are the final official results. It means in our system, we're done putting the results in for those. So 11 vote difference in Woodville, that could change. Let's see against the tax levy. I want to see which ones of these have fallen tonight. Which tax levies have not had success? Where we have results in right now. Those ones all win. Okay, Wasion Parks and Rec. Rejection. Wasion Parks and Rec levy, 1.6 mils for recreational purposes. That fails. So Wasion voters will not be spending more on their property tax bills to support parks this year. That levy fails. Clinton Township fire levy narrowly, I don't want to say fails because they're still outstanding vote, but you need a lot of help from absentee or from the outstanding mail-in ballots from overseas voters. There is no grace period anymore for absentee ballots. So I think that changes the calculation on election night a little bit, because before we wouldn't know how many mail-in ballots there were because they could arrive for a week after the election until Saturday. That's not the case anymore. Ohio eliminated its absentee ballot grace period. Every valid vote has to come in Actually, Derek Marin is speaking now. Let's take his shot live.
Came less than 1% away the last time. We're going to finish the mission. We have a lot of momentum, and I think more people are realizing that we have to solve problems in Northwest Ohio. Marcy Kaptur has been in Washington for over 40 years. She has not delivered. We need new leadership. We need a stronger economy. We need more jobs. We need higher wages. We have to lower the cost of living. We have to solve real problems like high health care costs, energy costs, and we got to put American citizens first.
You know, we're still going to figure out the final numbers, but you guys are about 20 percentage points ahead of the Williams camp and the Sheehan camp. Why is that such a big gap right now between your guys' campaign and the rest of the field?
Well, all the competitors ran strong races. They all very talented and accomplished individuals, and I wish them the best. They have served our country and have all have bright futures ahead. I'm honored to receive the most votes tonight, but the real work is just beginning. We have to uplift Northwest Ohio. Marcy Kaptur has failed. It needs to be defeated. Washington needs to be defeated. We have to uplift our area and take care of our citizens.
Have you heard from Josh tonight?
Listen, my phone's going off with a lot of phone calls. I haven't been able to connect with everyone, but look forward to talking with all of them.
As a congressman, if you win in the general election, what is your plan? What are some of the things, some examples you can give us that you are planning to do?
Well, I am focused on helping the pocketbooks of Northwest Ohioans. I want everyone to become wealthier. I want to reduce their costs. I want to improve their quality of life. And we have real problems in Northwest Ohio that we can focus on, whether it's the airport or helping our education system with the University of Toledo or better local government services like helping fix the roads. I'm going to be a partner here for the local officials and try to bring resources here to make all our lives better. And because I really feel our region has been forgotten by Marcy Kaptur in Washington, and that needs to change, and it will change. We have to have new leadership, fresh ideas, and energy to take our Northwest Ohio to the next level.
I just want to end with this with you. You know, some people are going to be critical of the way the map was drawn this time around down at the state level. So for people out there, they're going to look at you and say, this wasn't a fair map to begin with, so why should I give you a vote? What do you say to people that might have that kind of critique?
The only thing unfair is that Northwest Ohio has had to suffer under Marcy Kaptur for over 40 years. It's about her power. It's about her prestige. It's not about what is best for the citizens of Ohio. Our founding fathers never wanted someone to stay in office for that long. That's why we need new leadership, and we're going to deliver it. Thanks, guys.
One last question about the lakes. I do have a voter who is concerned about lakes and our water. Where do you stand about?
I'm very concerned about water quality in Lake Erie, and I think what we can all agree on is Marcy Kaptur hasn't delivered. She's had 40 years to fix it. Has it gotten better? That's why we're still talking about it. We're still talking about a lot of the problems in Northwest Ohio because Marcy Kaptur has failed. I'm going to change that. I'm going to be a good partner for our area, and we're going to take problems head on, and we're going to promote Northwest Ohio and deliver the services that people deserve. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I'm
so sorry. I didn't see it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, Derek Marin, waiting to see if he'll talk more or if that was the end of his media availability for this evening. He might end up speaking a little bit more. Okay, so he is. He's getting set up with our Brianna Weaver. Looked like he was just going around one-on-one and talking to reporters there. So as soon as he gets this set up, we can go ahead and listen into this shot. They're working to get it set up behind the scenes there. Derek Marin live at the Lucas County Republican headquarters, where he is right now holding a commanding lead in this primary election. 18,886 votes cast for him this evening. 43% of the total going by way of Derek Marin. Not cracking 50%, but it is enough to get the job done tonight. Josh Williams looks like he will end up finishing in second place behind Marin, about 18 points behind him. And you heard him maybe say there that he has not heard from he has not heard yet from Josh Williams, the candidate who's going to finish in second place here. So he hasn't heard from Williams. He said his phone is blowing up. The two of them had a previous friendship, and there were some attack ads and some contention in this primary between the two campaigns. Marin said he hadn't heard from Williams yet, but he said he hasn't heard or hasn't had time to check his phone and talk with everybody else. So let's listen in. He's now talking one-on-one with 13 Action.
For conservatives all across Northwest Ohio, helping me become the Republican nominee to run for Congress.
Obviously, moving forward from this, what do you think was the key takeaways for voters tonight?
Well, voters want change, and they want new leadership, and they want someone to focus on the real problems of the day, such as lowering the cost of living, respecting law enforcement, having the rule of law, and trying to uplift Northwest Ohio. Marcy Kaptur has failed our region for way too long. She's been in Washington for over 40 years, and our community deserves better, and I'm going to be that new, fresh leadership that can make change happen.
Fresh leadership is what a lot of people are wanting to see, I guess. What are you hoping to bring to the table that's different from Marcy?
Well, Marcy doesn't hold the same values as I do. She believes in higher taxes, more regulation. She puts illegal immigrants ahead of U.S. citizens, and that's not right. And she doesn't hold the same values that we do anymore. She's changed over the years. Washington changes people, and it's not going to change me. I love Toledo. I love Northwest Ohio. We deserve better, and we have to focus on real problems such as getting the gas prices down, energy prices down. We need transparency in healthcare to lower healthcare costs, and I'm going to focus on real issues. And as you know, Marcy Kaptur, has only passed like 5 bills in the last 40 years. It's time for change. It's time for real leadership and new leadership that focuses on getting results.
You've got a good crowd here tonight. How are you feeling about all of that?
The people behind me are wonderful. We've had so much support in our campaign from last cycle. We're building upon that momentum. We need change in Northwest Ohio, and people know that Marcy Kaptur just has really not been able to deliver here, and we're going to win this race.
The work doesn't end here, though. You've got plenty more to go. What's next in store for you?
Well, introducing myself again to voters that may not know me and letting people know what I stand for and what I believe in, because my values and how I've grown up will resonate when people know the truth. And hopefully they don't believe all the negative campaign ads that they see that distort the truth and manipulate the truth. Our campaign is going to be a positive campaign and on real issues.
Any events that you're going to be at coming up that voters can find you and talk to you about these concerns?
Well, we're going to be everywhere every week, and we're going into every single neighborhood in Lucas County, every single neighborhood in Toledo. Whether it's Democrat or Republican, we're going to take our message to all voters because our issues will resonate with everyone.
Perfect. Anything you feel like I'm forgetting to ask? Anything else you want to add or mention?
You're good.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay, Derek Marin talking with 13 Action News there at Lucas County Republican Party headquarters after his election night victory. All his supporters gathering there in Holland by Springfield High School at the GOP building in Lucas County. So victory for Derek Marin tonight. We will see if we are talking about a victory for Derek Marin in November whenever he moves on to face Marcy Kaptur. It has also been decided that Sherrod Brown will face John Husted in November. Sherrod Brown cruising to victory tonight in his primary that with 90% of the vote with a political newcomer going up against him. So Husted, Brown facing off in November. Winner ends up keeping that seat for just 2 years, not 6 years, as senators currently or traditionally do, because it's the old seat held by J.D. Vance. So we'll be campaigning in Ohio for U.S. Senate basically until 2030, because as soon as this election ends, campaigning for the next one's going to begin. And then once 2028's election ends, campaigning for 2030 will begin. So we'll have pretty much continuous Senate primaries or Senate campaigns in Ohio for the next handful of years. And it started a couple of campaign cycles ago, but it really kicks off tonight, this 2026 general election campaign between Sherrod Brown and John Husted. I want to do one more round of checks really quickly, and then we're going to have to sign off officially from the stream and get ready for more TV coverage. Action News at 11 comes up at the top of the hour with complete election results from our whole team. Interesting. I don't know if that's reportable yet. I'm going to hold off on mentioning that. Tune into 11. Tune into Action News 11. I want to get some more information on the back end of a couple of things. Let's check in on a couple more races. I'm really actually surprised that there isn't a race call here yet in the GOP primary for treasurer. With 81% of the vote now in. It's a 40,000 vote lead for Jay Edwards. The vice president endorsed him in that race. Christina Rogner endorsed by Vivek Ramaswamy. The dueling endorsements made that primary interesting. And the closest primary election tonight for either party outside of Supreme Court, so all of your major statewide offices, they were pretty well said and done early in the night, except for that treasurer primary, which still has not been called. We also still do not have a race call in the 1st District State Senate Republican primary between Craig Riedel and Jim Hoops. Still some votes outstanding in this election, particularly in the counties of, is Hancock County completely reporting at this hour? Where are our outstanding votes? Most of this district is fully reporting. It's Hardin County where the votes are still outstanding. Defiance County is largely in. Williams County still has about 30% of the vote to come in. So still waiting on numbers for Williams County and Hardin County. About 7% of the vote in Hancock County is still outstanding. So those are our remaining votes here in this district, but a wider lead for Craig Riedel than the last time we checked in on this, 51.1% in that contest. Couple of levies that we've been following tonight too. I don't think there are any earth-shattering updates on those before we sign off. The Toledo Zoo levy poised to win. 911 levy is coming in a little bit closer as we get more and more votes from Lucas County, so hold off on declaring a victor in that levy request. Sylvania schools 60% to 39% against that tax levy so far tonight. So let's call it a night here and wrap up this live stream as we get ready for Action News at 11. I am Josh Krupp. Thanks for following along with us tonight, whether it be on our YouTube or our Facebook page or our streaming apps especially. Appreciate all of you who joined us there. Full results on 13abc.com. We'll be in here late into the night refreshing all of these numbers and getting these races all up to date. Until we chat again in the November general election, when we will do this again, we hope you have an enjoyable rest of your night. Remember that every vote counts, and every election shows us that, whether you're in Lucas County or Williams County or Ashtabula or Cleveland or Hamilton. Vote matters in these elections, especially whenever you get to the very hyper-local level and there's not a lot of wiggle room. Vote matters. Glad to see so many people turn out on this election. Almost 20% turnout in Lucas County, above what we've seen in previous elections. These are the results of all of those votes. Thank you for joining us here on the stream. I'm Josh Krupp. We leave you with this live shot overlooking a little bit of a drizzly city of Toledo on election night 2026.